Chapter 13-19. Of course, as Guagua's guardian, Su Yun naturally didn't want Guagua to go. Although he knew very well that the Dragon Brigade was a great place, he had endured all those hardships before, and he knew very well how much conviction was needed to persevere through those hardships. Su Yun persevered in the Dragon Brigade because he had nowhere else to go. Old Tai Sui had told him that unless he could become a very, very strong man, stronger than anyone else, there was no way he could see his father. It was because of this belief that Su Yun endured more intense training every day than anyone else. From a very young age, he had directly undergone adult extreme training, and that was how he became who he was today. The reason his strength had soared so rapidly was not only because of Guagua's existence, but also because he had already stretched his body to its limits in his early years, giving him enough space to absorb power and improve. Different people around Guagua had all received different degrees of improvement due to her unique racial constitution, but the only one who had experienced a qualitative improvement was Su Yun. Other than Cho Yun, who had undergone some kind of seal, the other's strength had also increased. That kind of improvement was normal, but Su Yun had completely exceeded the normal range. All of this had a lot to do with Su Yun's physical limits. Even Wan Guangxiao and Wang Yi, who had trained Su Yun since he was young, couldn't predict the limits of Su Yun's body. No matter what kind of extreme training, Su Yun would always be able to break through, and he would never fail in advance. The Dragon Brigade's extreme training was extremely perverse. Even in the Dragon Brigade, 99% of the people were unable to complete the training. For example, to continuously do 100,000 push-ups, even for people like them who had inhuman physiques, it would take them nearly 28 hours to do one push-up per second. For 28 hours, without eating or drinking, they had to continuously do push-ups, one after another. This was the Dragon Brigade's extreme training. Including all the people in the Dragon Brigade, there were no more than 10 people who could complete this kind of training. Also, they had to march at a speed of 40 kilometers per hour while carrying 150 kilograms of weight. They had to walk at least 800 kilometers to reach the standard of extreme training. They had to walk for 20 hours. Not to mention the super speed of 40 kilometers per hour, or the terrifying weight of 150 kilograms, a normal person would break their legs even if they walked barehanded for 20 hours. This kind of training that Transcendence couldn't complete, Su Yun was able to persevere and become the only person to complete it. Every extreme training, Su Yun, he would continue to make breakthroughs on his own. He would do 110,000 push-ups, to continuously march with weights for 21 hours. He would make breakthroughs every year. It made those who still couldn't break through the initial extreme training gasp in amazement. It wasn't that those who couldn't break through didn't work hard or persevere, it was just that these extreme training sessions were too difficult to break through. Take Qian Feng for example. After he did more than 60,000 push-ups, he reached his limit. Every subsequent push made him scream himself hoarse. The most he could do was 85,001 push-ups. If he continued, his bones would break, so he was forced to stop the training. After the training ended, his arms swelled for a week before they recovered. For the next month, he couldn't even hold chopsticks. Another example was Hua Xiaolu. Every time he quickly marched with weights, he would fall down and go into shock. In the beginning, he could only march for 10 hours, but now, he could walk for 15 hours before he fainted because he used up his last drop of energy. This was the meaning of extreme training. It was through these breakthroughs that Su Yun's physique became so special. In Wang Yi's words, these extreme training sessions were never the limit for Su Yun. They were just goals that could be conquered. Even if he had to circle the Earth's equator empty-handed, Su Yun would definitely be able to persevere until the last step before collapsing. The blood in his bones was so stubborn, so stubborn. Sometimes, it even made people feel that he was unreasonable. But it was this unreasonable nature that made Su Yun the person he was today. Ever since the first day Su Yun entered the Dragon Brigade, he, who was ignorant and sensible, understood that there was always someone better than him. It was simply impossible for him to become the strongest man that old Tai Sui mentioned. But even though Su Yun knew that it was impossible, he still pushed himself to do it because it was his only hope to see his father. It was this tiny flame of hope that made him persevere day after day. This belief was still the same even now. But now, he would no longer admit that this belief was the one that made him persevere to this point. That kind of place is not a place where a child should go. Su Yun smiled slightly and rejected Guagua's request. He didn't dare to meet Guagua's gaze because he was afraid that he wouldn't be able to reject her. He could feel Guagua's determination. Guagua didn't say anything. She still looked at Su Yun with the same gaze as before. She looked at Su Yun without saying a word, waiting for Su Yun to change his answer. Guagua. Cho Yun didn't expect Guagua to say this. She suddenly felt a little afraid. If Guagua really wanted to go, what should she do? Stop her or let nature take its course? For some reason, the child in Cho Yun's eyes suddenly seemed to have grown a lot. Why could she understand the concept of taking responsibility that many adults didn't understand? Su Yun. Ruan Qingxuang cast a pleading look at Su Yun. Her first reaction was, of course, that she couldn't let Guagua go. She was so young. But when she saw Su Yun, she suddenly seemed to see Su Yun when he was a child. At that time, where did Su Yun go? He was even younger than Guagua, right? Ruan Qingxuang really couldn't say the words that were stuck in her stomach. She wanted to say that that place was not a place for children, but it was full of contradictions with Su Yun's life experience. She was afraid that it would remind Su Yun of his memories. She was afraid that Su Yun would think too much. I know that you all treat me as a child, and I am indeed a child. Guagua said, but I don't think that children can't make their own decisions. Auntie Schwanger sacrificed herself because of me. If I can become a person like her in the future, I won't feel guilty for the rest of my life. Moreover, Su Yun's father can live in a place where he grew up, so why can't I live there? I am very happy to have you all, but I still know that I am an orphan. Guagua, you are not an orphan, and the army is not a shelter for orphans. Su Yun, I know that you want to take responsibility, but the responsibility is not yours. I don't want you to go, not because I don't want to. It's just that you are different from me when I was a child. You have a choice now, but I didn't have a choice at that time. If I was like you at that time and had a choice, I don't know if I would still have the courage to choose there. Chapter 13:20. Boss, no wonder she's your girl, Chen Feng said. However, I still suggest that you let her stay by your side. Like you said, we didn't have a choice at that time. That was the only path. Now, she has a choice. She can choose to live like an ordinary person. But I don't want to be an ordinary person. Besides, I'm not an ordinary person, Guagua said. If I can go to that place, it will be helpful to all of you. Su Yun was suddenly startled. Yes, Guagua's special identity. If she was in the Dragon Brigade, perhaps the entire strength of the whole brigade would rise to another level. Why didn't he think of this? Out of his feelings for the Dragon Brigade and his selfishness for the Dragon Brigade, Su Yun was really moved. But this was Guagua's life after all. He couldn't just casually make a decision. My life, I make the decision. Guagua suddenly said. Family broken, people dead, wandering, until I met Mama Guagua. These were things that Guagua didn't have a choice. But Guagua is lucky. Today I have a chance to choose. Please promise me. I'm not fooling around. When I go there, I will definitely not be a naughty child that gives everyone a headache. I will make you all look at me differently. Silence. The whole room was silent. Everyone was waiting for Su Yun's reply. Only when Su Yun's final words could Guagua's suggestion be put to an end. Su Yun thought for a long time. Finally he said, Guagua, your life, you make the decision. Only in this way will you have no regrets in your life. I don't want you to have any regrets in your life. I also believe that all of us don't want you to have any regrets in your life. Su Yun wanted to make the decision for Guagua. He knew that Ruan Qingxuang and Cho Yun wanted to make the decision for Guagua, but it was just as he said. After all, this was Guagua's life. If any of them decided for her, it would no longer be her life. Sometimes, you need to make your own choices in life. Only when you make your own choices can you go on without looking back and regret. Only when you make your own choices can you not regret it because of many disappointments and hesitation. Thank you, Daddy. Guagua said, thank you for letting me choose. No matter what your choice is, I hope that you can calm down and think about it on your own. Once you've confirmed your answer, tell me, Suyun said. You know the choice that we want you to make. I hope it won't affect you. And I know what you want to choose. I don't think that your choice is wrong, but I don't know if it's wise or not. Guagua, think about it carefully before you make a decision. Don't be anxious. Guagua nodded. I don't want you to make me regret letting you make the decision today, Suyun said in the end. Guagua said with certainty, I won't. No matter what my choice is, I will follow my own heart and stick to my choice until the end. Suyun smiled. He felt much better. As long as you can stick to it and don't regret your choice, I won't regret the decision I made today. Guagua, I believe in you. Guagua, I believe in you too. Although Ruan Qingshuang was very reluctant for Guagua to choose to go to the army, she still gritted her teeth and supported Suyun's decision. She knew that Suyun's decision was right and she had no right to make the decision for Guagua. Cho Yun was silent for a moment before speaking up softly. No matter what, Big Sister will support your decision. Go make your choice according to your heart. Your future belongs to you. Even if you choose to go to that place, you don't have to live for the sake of anyone else. You have to live for your own future. Big Sister Cho Yun, I also want to leave you as soon as possible. Guagua stuck out her tongue and said something that made people confused. People who knew about the relationship between Cho Yun and Guagua were very clear. Although it was said that Cho Yun had always protected Guagua because Feng Chen Sui had helped Guagua before, Cho Yun and Feng Chen Sui had a master-servant relationship. However, everyone could see clearly that Guagua had never treated Cho Yun as a servant and Cho Yun had always treated Guagua as her own sister. Logically speaking, the person that Guagua couldn't leave the most should be Cho Yun, the big sister who watched her grow up. However, Guagua said such a sentence. Even if it was a joke, would it hurt Cho Yun's heart too much? Cho Yun looked at Guagua in surprise. She knew that Guagua wouldn't hurt her. Could it be that Guagua was thinking about her? If I am always by your side, you will never be able to have your own life. Guagua continued, I know Grandpa's last words for you. I know that you have always regarded me as the center of your future life. Everything you do is only for me. But from now on, I want you to stop living for me. You have your own life, and your life has its own meaning. Everyone should be fair, right? Cho Yun's eyes suddenly burst into tears. She pulled Guagua into her arms and choked with sobs. Guagua, you have really grown up. The more hardships a child encountered in childhood, the greater the hardships, the faster they would grow up compared to ordinary children. Although Guagua was a naughty child, that was only on the surface. In fact, she was very sensible. In many things, her actions weren't just for show, but for herself. Most of the time, the things she considered were even better than the adults. There were many people who couldn't see this. This could only mean that these people's thoughts weren't as mature as Guagua's. Guagua's maturity far exceeded that of children her age. This was because the things she suffered were more painful than her peers. The pain was hundreds or thousands of times more painful. At this moment, Suyun seemed to see the shadow of his childhood in Guagua. His persistence back then was the same as Guagua's. Boss, if there's anything you need us to pass on, we will go back and tell the brigade commander. Han Zhan said. Every year, the Dragon Brigade would accept children of all kinds of backgrounds. These children included the children of old friends and orphans of soldiers. Han Zhan and the others who grew up with Suyun were all such children. Guagua was Suyun's daughter. If she wanted to join the Dragon Brigade, the organization naturally wouldn't reject her. However, this also needed to go through the procedures. If it was already decided, Han Zhan would go back and inform Wang Yi in advance. Suyun shook his head. Let's wait for her to think it through and make the final decision. I will personally tell the organization. Han Zhan nodded and didn't say anything else. Shuang Er's ashes will be dealt with according to our martyrs' customs. Hua Leitang said, we will also hand over the people of the 12 heavenly stars to the organization to deal with. Matthew will also be sent back safely. Don't worry. With you leading the team, I can rest assured. Su Yun patted Hua Leitang's shoulder. According to the Dragon Brigade's customs, the ashes of Fan Shuang Er, who also didn't have a family, would be scattered on the east coast of Huaxia. If one day Su Yun died because of a mission, he would also request for the same. They were the dragon souls of Huaxia. Even if they were turned into ashes, every speck of dust would guard the coastline of Huaxia and not allow any enemy to invade. If an enemy wanted to cross into Huaxia, the first obstacle would be them. Chapter 13:21. The brothers of the Dragon Fury team left with the 12 heavenly stars. Zhua Langyue, who had helped them behind the scenes, was nowhere to be found. Although Su Yun wanted Guagua to consider for 3 days before making a decision, everyone knew that Guagua had already made up her mind. Su Yun gave her 3 days to stay with everyone so that Ruan Qingxuang and Chou Yun could better accept this reality. Otherwise, if Guagua left with the Dragon Fury team today, Ruan Qingxuang and Chou Yun might not be able to accept this reality. They needed time to accept Guagua's departure. Although these 3 days were short and cruel, it was still precious time. The rest of the day made everyone feel especially relaxed. Su Yun slept for the entire morning. In the afternoon, he went to the police station with Qin Wan to cooperate with some work. After all, the 12 heavenly stars were the murderers of Wei Yishan and were taken away by the military. They needed Su Yun to give a statement. They also needed Su Yun to communicate with the higher-ups of the organization and send a certificate with a large steel seal to the police. If it was in the past, Su Yun definitely wouldn't have cooperated with them. However, now that Su Yun had recovered his identity as a member of the Dragon Brigade, he couldn't refuse to cooperate with the police even if he didn't want to. This was also his responsibility. Zhua Meiyan also left with Zhuo Yeming and Wang Zhe. She didn't want to stay in the same city as Su Yun when there were so many people around. She didn't have time to be alone with him. When there were so many people around, she would feel uncomfortable. Ruan Qingxuang and Chou Yun took Guagua to shop for the whole day. No matter what Guagua liked, Ruan Qingxuang would buy it for her without hesitation. Because she knew in her heart that she wouldn't have such an opportunity in the future. Later, the 3 of them watched a movie and spent the whole day together. Chou Yun still felt a little sad because of the time that was disappearing every minute and second. Fortunately, Guagua was able to adjust the atmosphere in time, so that Chou Yun was not so sad. Although Zhua Lengyue had left, Xiao Qiao didn't. This terrifying character called Blood Yiksha didn't let Su Yun feel her baleful aura and chilling killing intent. On the contrary, she gave people a sense of warmth. After all, Xiao Qiao had helped Su Yun a lot with Guagua's matter. Moreover, she was Bai Xiaoye's best friend who grew up with her. So, after Su Yun finished his business in the police station, he had dinner with Qin Wan and several city leaders. Thus, he invited Xiao Qiao to the bar on the top floor of Xingkai Hotel for a few drinks. Xiao Qiao wasn't good at socializing. Today, everyone was so busy that she wanted to relax. She couldn't join in the conversation, so she spent her time watching TV in the hotel room. At noon, she went out to eat some fast food. At night, she was too lazy to go out, so she directly ordered an urgent delivery to the hotel. When Su Yun invited her, she was eating fried chicken wings and drinking Coke. She was the kind of person who wouldn't get fat no matter how much she ate, so she didn't worry about how high the calories of these foods were. Hearing that Su Yun invited her to the bar on the top floor of the hotel for a drink, Xiao Qiao immediately agreed. I've heard that this is the best bar in Shenzhong City, but I haven't had a chance to come here. I'm worried that I can't afford it. Is the alcohol on the top floor very expensive? Are there customers? Hee, the bar doesn't only sell alcohol. It's a place where you can feel the entire Shenzhong City. You'll know when you go up. Su Yun, as for customers, although there aren't many, there's never a lack of them. There are more and more rich people now. Xiao Qiao said, I heard that those who spend hundreds of thousands to open a bottle of red wine can only be considered middle class. Yes, because there are more and more people who want to experience the feeling of owning the entire Shenzhen city. Su Yun, they don't come here to drink, but to experience this feeling. The alcohol may not be worth the price, but the feeling is definitely worth it. Because only that kind of feeling can stimulate their ambition and give them more motivation on the road ahead. Xiao Qiao smiled slightly. I don't understand the feeling you're talking about. I'm not rich, nor am I a businessman. I don't have any ambition. As the two chatted and laughed, they had already reached the bar on the top floor. Su Yun had already asked Chong to greet the manager on duty. They directly went up to the upper floor of the bar. When Xiao Qiao looked down at the entire Shenzhen city, her face was filled with surprise. Very quickly, that surprise turned into a smile. I think I understand the feeling you're talking about now. No wonder. Don't talk about rich people. Even I feel that hundreds of thousands to open a bottle of wine here isn't expensive. What do you want to drink? Su Yun, there are some precious red wines here. No, I don't want it. I don't know about red wine, I don't know how to appreciate it. Don't waste it recklessly. Xiao Qiao said, I just like the spiciness of Hua Xia's white wine. Do you think they don't have it here? Su Yun didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He suddenly felt that he would definitely like to make friends with people like Xiao Qiao. She wasn't pretentious or hypocritical at all. She completely showed her true side. Indeed, there are very few customers who drink white wine here. Even if those customers also like to drink white wine, when they come here, they will still order red wine that has no alcohol content to them or foreign wine that they're not used to drinking. It's all for the sake of taste. Xiao Qiao shrugged. So things like taste can also be faked. I really didn't expect that. It seems like you really don't have the wine I want to drink here. But the world is so big. There are all kinds of people. There are also bosses who like to drink white wine. Su Yun, Yen Jia, with Zezhi. Yen drinking wine, with Zezhi. Qin and Sei are in control, all are peaceful. 3,000 years ago, when the word wine was written in large amounts in the Book of Songs, white wine and Hua Xia's culture formed an indissoluble bond. Then for such a cultured wine bar, there must be white wine. Xiao Qiao revealed a smile. Of course, Mao Tai, Wulianghua, Li Du. You can have anything you want. Su Yun, don't forget, this isn't a simple bar, it's a hotel. Xiao Qiao gave a laugh. Su Yun was right, this was a hotel. Even if the wine bar didn't have it, the food and beverage section below would have it. But one thing was certain, there was no lack of wine here. If you want Mao Tai 50 years old, there would definitely be it. If you want Duke Windsor from the wine cellar 1573, there would definitely be it. As long as there were thousands of bottles of wine, there would be no lack here. But there definitely wouldn't be any small grenades that cost $2.50 or Old Village Chief that cost $8 a bottle. This place definitely wouldn't have it. This is your place, you can arrange it. Xiao Qiao said, even if you treat me to the cheapest Red Star Erguotu, I will definitely drink it first. Su Yun revealed a faint smile. On Humph, that's easy. I can tell with a single glance that your alcohol tolerance isn't normal, then let's have some of the Confucius family's wine. 1 cup will whet your appetite, 2 cups won't hurt your kidneys, and after 3 to 5 cups, I guarantee that your little face will be white with a bit of red. Chapter 13:22. Xiao Qiao drank as if she was tasting a cup of bitter coffee. Every time she picked up the wine glass, she would unconsciously frown and take a sip. Only after the spiciness of the alcohol spread to every corner of her mouth, she would feel satisfied. The two of them seemed to have suddenly become professional wine tasters. They just drank mouthful after mouthful of wine and looked down at the night view of Shenzhen. Soon, almost 2/3 of the bottle of white wine was drunk, but the two of them acted as if nothing had happened. I have long heard that the people in the special forces have alcohol resistance training. Judging from your appearance, that training must be very effective. Xiao Qiao smiled slightly. If one of us has to drink until the other is drunk, can we end it tonight? Su Yun also laughed. This is called drinking with a bosom friend. 1,000 cups are not enough. Since you said so, your alcohol tolerance must be bottomless. Could it be that you have also received alcohol resistance training? Or are you born with an antibody to alcohol? I have heard of people who are born with an antibody to alcohol. They can't even drink 3 to 5 catties of alcohol. Xiao Qiao said, I don't have that innate ability. My alcohol tolerance is probably trained by stealing my master's wine since I was young. Su Yun was stunned. Wasn't Xiao Qiao's master Zhuo Lengyue? Zhuo Lengyue was also an alcoholic? During the few years when my master took me in, she couldn't leave wine every day. Xiao Qiao said, every time we saw my master drinking, Xiao Yi and I would be very worried. Because every time she got drunk, she would say something that made no sense to us. But now, after knowing that Xiao Yi is my master's daughter, I suddenly understood everything. Did she drink a lot of wine every day at that time? Su Yun was a little surprised. Zhuo Lengyue was such a well-maintained woman. How could she be the kind of alcoholic? Didn't alcoholic women age very quickly? Why didn't she look old at all? Furthermore, from Xiao Qiao's words, she was also someone who had been addicted to alcohol since she was young. Even though she had been drinking at such a young age, she had also grown into a graceful and elegant woman. The difference between people's physiques was really too big. Could it be that Zhuo Lengyue had some kind of elixir that could make them look like they were taken by a beauty camera after eating it? What a joke. Su Yun really didn't believe that she was a girl who was addicted to alcohol since childhood. You drank with your master since you were young? White wine. Yes. That's why I only like white wine now. Xiao Qiao said, otherwise, why don't I drink some of your precious red wine? It's because I've been spoiled by my master's white wine since I was young, so now those wines with low alcohol content are like drinking water to me. I don't want you to think that I'm wasting your precious red wine. You were probably taken in by your master when you were in your teens. Why did you think of drinking at that time? Su Yun said, if your master drank to drown his sorrows, then you. Xiao Qiao smiled faintly, took another sip of wine, and said indifferently, why do you think I'm a perverted murderous demoness? Is it because those 23 people were wiped out in a single night many years ago? Su Yun froze awkwardly, but in the end, he still nodded, admitting Xiao Qiao's words. Indeed, I've heard of Blood Yiksha's name when I was 13. A girl the same age as me was able to crazily kill 23 people in one night, all of them decapitated. I admit that this matter has long since set a certain image of you in my heart, but I never thought that you would be different from what I imagined. What kind of person do you think I should be? Like Mei Chaofeng? Xiao Qiao looked relaxed, but only she knew the heaviness in her heart. I admit that those 23 people were killed by me. Su Yun was silent for a while, but he didn't know what to say in the end. He could only raise his glass, signaling Xiao Qiao to drink with him. The 2 glasses clinked. Su Yun raised his glass and drank it in one gulp. Xiao Qiao didn't hesitate either, she drank it in one gulp. After the 2 of them filled their glasses again, the whole bottle of Kung Fu family's liquor was gone. Su Yun snapped his fingers, and someone immediately brought it up. The manager on duty saw that Chairman Su and Xiao Qiao were drinking the liquor, and he really wanted to ask them if they needed to make some side dishes. After all, the lounge didn't have much alcohol, so the manager on duty held back, put down the liquor, and left. After he left, he immediately ordered people to go downstairs to find some drunkard's peanuts, pickled pepper chicken feet, spicy duck wings, and other side dishes to go with the liquor. If Chairman Su needed it, he could directly send it up. If Chairman Su didn't need it, he wasn't afraid of wasting it. He could just eat it as supper at night. After all, the customers in the lounge left all kinds of alcohol every day, so he wasn't afraid of not having enough to drink. I've heard about you. If it were me, I would probably take revenge on those 23 people, but... Su Yun suddenly stopped. He didn't know how to continue. It's just that you won't cut off their heads in such a cruel way like I did, right? Xiao Qiao smiled faintly, and continued to drink the liquor in her glass. Although I killed them, I didn't cut off their heads. Su Yun was stunned. Was it someone else? Was it Zhua Lingyue's doing? Don't think too much. I didn't tell my master that I wanted to take revenge. So it couldn't be my master's doing. Xiao Qiao said, people like them have done too many evil things. Even if they ended up like this, they deserved it. It's just that I got the name Blood Yiksha for no reason. Hee hee. But I do like this name. It suits me. Those people who died later, were they all friends of those 23 people? Su Yun asked again. Yes. Xiao Qiao nodded. Those people deserved to die. They were all related to those 23 people. Most of them committed evil deeds and ran to other provinces. Over time, they stayed there. Every one of them had a crime that could only be washed away with death. Su Yun took a sip of the liquor. He could feel Xiao Qiao's killing intent when she mentioned this matter. That kind of childhood experience was indeed unacceptable. He could understand. If it were him, he might have done the same thing as Xiao Qiao. When a person was forced to a certain point, that kind of killing intent would naturally turn him into another person. If you could choose again, would you still kill those people? Su Yun suddenly asked out of the blue. In fact, he was also trying to find an answer to this question for himself. Xiao Qiao thought for a while, and then nodded very firmly. I would still do it, because those people deserve to die. If I didn't kill them, I don't know how many people they would have harmed. These people deserved to die. Even if my hands were stained with blood, I definitely wouldn't let them get away with it. Su Yun deeply felt the same. If he could choose again, would he still kill that scum in a fit of rage? He would still choose to kill without hesitation. Because Su Yun also knew that if he didn't kill those people, they would definitely do even more evil deeds in the future. Only by completely eradicating those people from this world would everything be clean. Only then would there be no more betrayals and no more conspiracies. Su Yun also never thought that his actions were wrong. Even if he killed them 1,000 times, 10,000 times, even if he was completely removed from the Dragon Brigade, he wouldn't regret it. Only by completely eradicating those scum could his brothers in the Dragon Brigade not be harmed by those who betrayed them. This kind of thing had to be done by oneself. Others would never be able to stand in one's shoes and look at this kind of problem. Chapter 13:23. Su Yun smiled. Speaking of Bai Xiaoye, he felt a lot more at ease. She had recovered well in all aspects, and everything was going well in Shenzhen. It's pretty good. I think it's the best way to heal someone who's hurting themselves. This way, the pain in your heart can be completely soothed. Xiaoye has been meticulous since she was young. I have always treated her as my biological sister. Xiao Qiao faintly said, we have always treated each other as the most important people in our lives. Because we are both orphans. When I was taken in by Master, she was just starting to understand. If it wasn't for Xiaoye, I don't know if I could have survived. It was imaginable that Xiao Qiao, who was so young, suffered such a serious injury and suddenly became an orphan. This wasn't something that an ordinary person could bear. At that time, she saw Bai Xiaoye, who was younger than her and was also an orphan. If Bai Xiaoye could be so strong, why couldn't she? It was because of Bai Xiaoye's existence that Xiao Qiao persevered and had the courage to continue living. How long has it been since the two of you last met? Su Yun asked again. Ever since you disappeared, have you not seen each other? I will meet Master and Xiaoye every year, Xiao Qiao said. Master told me to avoid the limelight of the underground world as much as possible. She understands me. Most of the time, I'm not ruthless enough. It's a far cry from the title of Blood Yiksha. So, she's afraid that I will get into trouble with the underground world. If I get into big trouble and suffer a huge loss, it will be too late for regrets. Su Yun laughed dryly. You are the disciple of Empress Zhua Lingyue. Who dares to provoke you? Who else could be more troublesome than the Empress? When are you going to bring me to see Xiaoye? Xiao Qiao asked. I'm afraid you won't have time these 2 days, right? Otherwise, You can give me the address, and I will go and find her myself. At that time, I can even give her a surprise. We haven't met for more than 9 months. Su Yun raised his glass and gestured for Xiao Qiao to have another glass. Xiao Qiao didn't hesitate and directly clinked her glass with Su Yun's. Su Yun snapped his fingers and asked the manager on duty to bring him a pen and paper. He wrote down the detailed address of the Qingdao Film and Television Plaza for Xiao Qiao. He even wrote down by Xiaoye's office and the floor number. She is completely focused on her work now. Work. Xiao Qiao smiled. I really want to see Xiaoye's image as an office lady. I'll go tomorrow. I can't help you much here. Other than helping Su Yun, Zuolang Yue had invited Xiao Qiao to help by Xiaoye relieve her mental pressure. She did not intend to get involved in the matters here. Su Yun and the others' matters were settled by Su Yun and the others themselves. She did not have the energy to participate, nor was she interested in participating. CEO Su, Miss Xiao, do you still need some snacks? The manager on duty smiled and said, won't it be too boring if you only drink? Good wine and delicious food. There are snacks in the lounge? Su Yun was stunned. He was CEO Su. How could he not know about this? It can't be, right? After all, the lounge was a high-end brand. How could it be like a KTV or a bar? How could it sell snacks? However, drinking a little wine and eating some dishes really suited Su Yun's taste. If he knew that there were snacks to go with the wine, he would have asked for them long ago. Drinking white wine made him feel like he was missing something. The manager on duty patted his chest and said, others can't eat it, and our lounge doesn't provide it. But if CEO Su wants it, we definitely have it. We have pickled pepper, chicken feet, and spicy chicken wings. What do you want, CEO Su? I'll order everything. Su Yun finished speaking and glanced at Xiao Qiao. See the service here? It's very considerate. Haha, what do you want? Just tell them and they will satisfy you. Ha ha ha, if I knew that you were such a casual person, I would have asked if you have drunkard Hua Sheng. Xiao Qiao joked. She just drank. It was a habit she developed when she was young to soothe her pain. It didn't matter to her whether there was alcohol or not. Yes, of course. We have drunkard peanuts, tiger skin peanuts, and so on. The manager on duty said proudly. Forget about drunkard peanuts, even if you asked for girl beans, he would take out a bowl and point to the sky and shout, come into the bowl. Just like that, the two of them casually ate some dishes and casually drank a few bottles of high-strength white wine. Then, they left the lounge as if nothing had happened. The night shift staff were shocked by the amount of alcohol. Most people would get drunk after 3 to 5 taels of high-strength white wine. But these two people drank 3 to 5 caddies. What kind of concept was that? These two people's alcohol tolerance was enough to knock out all the people present. They were still working in the lounge. The manager on duty decided that after the night shift ended at 3 o'clock, he would immediately bring these guys to a place to eat skewers. Each person would have half a caddy of white wine and 5 bottles of beer. No one could go home if they didn't finish it. If they couldn't even hold that much alcohol, how could they have the nerve to tell others that they worked in Xingkai Lounge? When Su Yun returned to his room, he received news from the Dragon Brigade. The people from the 12 Heavenly Stars had been detained and were now preparing to be transferred to the International Court of Justice. Their actions were not just a small matter, but a very complicated international relationship. Therefore, the country attached great importance to this matter. Matthew, who came to Shenzhen but didn't help at all and instead caused trouble for Su Yun, also returned to Yanjing. He didn't even dare to say goodbye to Su Yun before leaving. He really didn't know how to face it. Su Yun also asked his brothers to pass on the message to him. This matter wasn't his fault. Anyone in his position would have done what he did. It was a mistake made because he wanted to take responsibility. The fault didn't lie with him. Fan Shuang-er's sacrifice also had nothing to do with him. In the end, they talked about a serious problem. That was the problem that Yu Meiren from the Dragon Brigade's medical department was most concerned about. Su Yun's inner demon had surfaced again. Although the current situation was different from before, Su Yun wouldn't completely lose control. He would only lose control when his killing intent was serious, but it was still true. It was reasonable to say that Su Yun's inner demon should have been eradicated long ago. The current situation definitely had nothing to do with before. This time, Su Yun's inner demon was obviously more serious than before. The medical department didn't have any good ideas now. Yu Meiren could only repeatedly emphasize to Su Yun that he shouldn't participate in any killing. If there was a situation, he shouldn't deal with it himself and should inform the brigade. The brigade would definitely arrange for someone to help him. Su Yun only chuckled. He didn't agree or disagree. After all, he couldn't always trouble the brigade with small matters. Yu Meiren knew that her words were useless. Su Yun always had his own ideas. Yu Meiren helplessly shook her head. She told Su Yun that no matter what he did, he had to think about what she said to him. Su Yun smiled and agreed. He said that he would definitely pay attention and wouldn't let her down. He wouldn't let her care and concern down. He told her not to worry and not to think too much. She should pay more attention to her body and not be too tired because of medical experiments. She must strike a balance between work and rest. Chapter 13:24. Ma San'er's honeymoon was arranged at the right time. After coming to Shanjiang to solve the problem, his legendary wife-to-be also appeared. She was a top student who graduated with a master's degree from Yen University and was about to study for a doctorate. She spoke quite well, and her temperament was definitely extraordinary. Ma San'er's face was shining. This wife-to-be was too good for him. She had a degree and everything he wanted. She spoke and chatted well. She was quite good in all aspects. People from Yen University were different. They had seen a lot. He didn't expect Ma San'er to have such a good life. He had always said that he wanted to be a bachelor. How could those guys who really couldn't find a wife be able to endure it? Su Yun really suspected that he brought his wife-to-be to Shenjiang for their honeymoon to show off. Secondly, he wanted to let his wife-to-be see that he was also a person with status in society. He could even let him stay in the presidential suite for free in such a luxurious hotel in Shenjiang. Ma San'er's wife-to-be talked about Ma San'er non-stop. In her eyes, there was no one in the world more outstanding than Ma San'er. She knew that Ma San'er supported so many poor students. In the past, she was supported by Ma San'er. In the future, she would support those poor children with Ma San'er. They would never give up on this matter. As a girl who was supported to walk out of the mountains and enter Yen University, she understood the feeling of longing for support and hope. A person could have nothing and be poor, but there must be hope. And her hope was brought to her by Ma San'er. That was why she would be grateful to Ma San'er for the rest of her life. She would never be able to walk out of her worship and admiration for this man. This kind of love was formed completely unconsciously. It was similar to mutual consent, like childhood sweethearts, and even a little like love at first sight. In any case, it was quite contradictory. But no matter what, it was good that they were in love. At any time, in any era, under any circumstances, love would never change. In the words of scientists, it was a biological program that no one could get rid of. Ma San'er had been supporting her since she was in her 3rd year of high school. All these years, they had never even met each other. But that was how they fell in love. Marx once said that, in my opinion, true love is expressed in the reserved, modest, even shy attitude of the lover towards his idol, and never in the careless display of passion and premature intimacy. Li Shangyin once wrote a poem, "The spring silkworm's silk will not be exhausted until it dies, and the candle will not dry until it has turned to ashes." Ma San'er felt that they could have this kind of unswerving loyalty and pledge of eternal love between them. That was why he opened his heart and walked with her. Ma San'er and his wife-to-be got married in private in Shenjiang. Originally, Su Yun had prepared a welcome banquet, but in the end, it became Ma San'er's engagement banquet. This guy took out his ring and proposed at the end of the banquet. Such a romantic scene made Yuan Qingshuang's eyes a little red. She hoped that all lovers in the world would get married, and that everyone could happily stay with their beloved other half and live a slow life. Life was bitter and short, and there were always regrets inadvertently. When you encountered beautiful scenery, you should take a good look at it. When you met your love, you should bravely love it. Ruan Qingxuang also fantasized that one day, she would also wear a beautiful wedding dress that was as white as snow and dance happily on the beach. That kind of wonderful feeling would make people feel excited just thinking about it. Qingxuang, Su Yun is a good man. You must hold on to him. Yi Fala suddenly whispered in Ruan Qingxuang's ear, "How does that song go again?" "Later, I finally learned how to love. Unfortunately, you have already disappeared into the sea of people. Later, I finally understood in my tears that some people will no longer exist once they are missed. Yes, some people will no longer exist once they are missed. There would never be a second chance. It was precisely because the world and life were too beautiful that sometimes it seemed so cruel. The past could never be recovered in a lifetime. No matter who it was. No matter what happened, you must not let yourself regret. When it came to love, friendship, and family, there were too many things. Once you hurt them, once you missed them, it would be a lifetime of pain." The joyous and peaceful atmosphere in Shenzhong Hotel lasted for 3 days. 3 days later, it was the deadline for Guagua to make a decision. Although everyone was very clear about Guagua's decision, they still let Guagua tell everyone what she wanted to do. After 3 days, Guagua's thoughts were very clear. She wanted to go, and she had to go, and she had to go without hesitation. She wanted to become a person like Su Yun. Her life experience was also sad. She wanted to grow up and inherit the title of Yin Long. She also wanted to experience the feeling of living and dying together with her teammates in the Dragon Fury team. She wanted to give Cho Yun her own life, and not be by her side for the rest of her life. Guagua felt that her decision was correct and should be done. She chose her own life. Even if she was hurt in the future, it was her own choice. It was a choice that she had no regrets about. "Since you've decided, Dad will definitely support you." Su Yun laughed. He tried to make his smile look less forced. "However, if you're afraid of hardships in the future, the people in the army won't open a back door for you just because of your relationship with me. I'm the kind of person who needs to be taken care of. If you dare to let the instructor give me special treatment and not train me strictly, that won't do." Guagua was also forcing a smile. She was also reluctant to part. She didn't even dare to look at Ruan Qingxuang and Cho Yun's eyes. "I've already prepared everything." Cho Yun could only look at Guagua with a smile. She could only give Guagua her blessings with a smile. No matter what choice Guagua made, as long as it was her path, she would always silently support her. Even if one day she fell and her head was bleeding, Cho Yun would always stand behind her and give her a warm hug. This was something that would never change. Guagua was her little sister. She would always be the little sister that she loved the most. Even if Feng Qiansui didn't ask, Cho Yun would always protect Guagua forever. Now that Guagua had decided where she wanted to go, she didn't need to protect her anymore. All she could do was to pray for her and then make her life more beautiful so that Guagua wouldn't worry about her. Ruan Qingxuang had been holding back her tears. Finally, at the moment when she forced a smile, tears burst out of her eyes. She could only quickly turn around and leave the moment her tears came out. She only left a sentence. "Mom is not feeling well. I won't send Guagua off. When you arrive, remember to call me." Selective avoidance was indeed the best choice. Ruan Qingxuang did this not only for herself. Guagua was the same as her. They couldn't face each other the most. In Guagua's heart, Ruan Qingxuang was her biological mother. Ruan Qingxuang never regarded Guagua as a child who was picked up. She treated her as her own daughter and gave her the most sincere care. Only the two of them knew their feelings best. No one else could understand. Chapter 13:25. The 12 heavenly stars were crippled in Huaxia. This blow was too big for Douglas. Ever since he took over the CIA, the 12 heavenly stars were the most important to nurture. It could be said that the 12 heavenly stars were half of his combat power. Moreover, they were the best of the best. The feeling of losing an army and losing a general was definitely very uncomfortable. In the office of the CIA, Douglas fiercely pushed all the documents on the table to the ground. He picked up the computer and smashed it on the floor. The electronic parts were smashed and scattered all over the floor. In the end, he still could not vent his anger and directly overturned the entire office table. The loud crash shook the entire building of the CIA. No one dared to ask about the situation. Ever since Douglas took over the position of the highest leader of the CIA, no one had seen him so angry. The people of the CIA had always succeeded in everything they did. Even if there were more setbacks in the middle, they would still be able to get the results they wanted. But this time, Douglas had always felt that the plan was perfect. The 12 heavenly stars kept sending back good news. The last report to him even said that they had captured a hostage that was especially important to Yen Long and Su Yun. As long as they had this hostage, they would not have to worry about not being able to exchange for Matthew. For this, Douglas even promised Peter that he could sacrifice Ellie. Ellie was his goddaughter. He had already made such a sacrifice, but the final result was still like this. This was the thing that Douglas could not accept the most. In his eyes, he could pay the price, pay any price. But the price must be paid in return. There must be a return. Just like a businessman, if there was an investment, there must be a return. An investment without a return was not called an investment, it was called squandering. Douglas's decision to let the 12 heavenly stars go to Huaxia was obviously not a successful investment case. It was a classic example of squandering. This squandering was quite serious. He had lost more than half of it in one go. After all, Douglas also had a heavy responsibility on his shoulders. His most capable 12 agents were crippled. What could he use to solve the current predicament he was facing now? The higher-ups only gave him one order, and that was to bring Kevin Matthew back alive. There was no reason why he couldn't complete this task. No matter what support he needed, the country would give it to him without hesitation. What he needed to do was to complete the tasks given to him by the country. Bam, bam, bam. The sound of his fingers knocking against the door was really ear-piercing to Douglas at this moment. Fortunately, someone finally knocked on Douglas's office door. Douglas took a deep breath. If no one knocked on his office door, he really didn't know how long his crazy venting would continue. The huge pressure made it hard for him to breathe. He looked down at the messy floor, and then at the office door. After a long silence, he slowly said, "Come in." The door was pushed open, and a blonde woman in a milky white trench coat appeared in Douglas's vision. Douglas felt as if he had been reborn. His eyes widened instantly as he stared at the woman who had just walked in, and he gasped in shock. "Why is it you?" Douglas couldn't believe his eyes. She actually came. Could it be that the higher-ups arranged for her to help him complete Kevin Matthews' mission? If that was the case, it would be great. This was probably the person who could increase Douglas's chances of completing the mission the most. He really didn't expect that she would come forward to help him. No, wait a minute. Douglas kept his head clear. She was no longer a member of the CIA. How could she be here to help the CIA? She was a member of the FBI. Even if she participated in this mission, it was definitely not to help him. She was adding insult to injury and provoking him. She wanted to prove that her FBI was more powerful than his CIA. "Douglas, it seems that your emotions have been a little unstable recently." The woman in the trench coat smiled slightly. "If there's anything that makes you unhappy, you can tell me. Maybe I can help you resolve it. We're all friends. There's no need to carry everything on your shoulders. Am I right?" Douglas moved his gaze away from the woman in the trench coat as quickly as possible. This woman seemed to have some kind of magic. If he didn't avoid her gaze in time, his soul would be easily taken away. This was not a joke. Not many people could withstand the charm in her eyes. Tang Sanzang didn't meet her on his journey to the west. If he had met her, he would have probably given birth to a nest of little monks. "This is the CIA. Did you come to the wrong place?" Douglas said, People from the FBI don't have the habit of visiting the CIA, right? That is to say, you don't welcome me. The blonde woman in the trench coat pretended to be sad and flipped her hair. If I knew this, I would have called and invited you to my office. At least I would have made you a cup of coffee. I wouldn't have let you stand in an office that's like a garbage dump, with no place to sit. Describing Douglas's room as a garbage dump was the most apt description. Douglas had already thrown everything that could be thrown onto the ground and smashed everything that could be smashed into smithereens. Other than a sofa in the corner of the room that could be barely sat on, there was really no place to stand. I like to work in a garbage dump. The people in the CIA are all sloppy. Douglas said angrily, "Why did you come here to find me? If you have something to say, just say it directly." The blonde woman in the trench coat smiled slightly. "Of course, I'm here to comfort you. I heard some things recently. Let me say this first, I'm not here to provoke you on purpose, nor do I intend to inquire about your CIA matters. It's just that this matter has caused an uproar internationally. I'm afraid that there's really no one who doesn't know about the CIA's 12 heavenly stars falling into trouble in Huaxia, right?" Douglas clenched his fist. He knew that this woman didn't come here with good intentions. Fortunately, the people you trained are tight-lipped. Even if they were sentenced to life imprisonment by the International Court of Justice, they wouldn't say that it was an order given by you, the leader of the CIA. The blonde woman in the trench coat smiled slightly. "Not bad. If there's a chance, come to the FBI and help me train my people. Let them learn how to keep their mouths shut if there's a problem and the mission fails. He, it's just that my people have never failed before." "That's enough. I'm not in the mood to listen to you right now. What exactly are you here for? If you're just here to mock me, then you've already achieved your goal." Douglas said, "Take care, I won't send you off." The blonde woman in the trench coat chuckled for a while. "I'm not as bad as you say. Why would I mock you? I'm also here for work. It's about Kevin Matthew. His matter is our CIA's matter. Even if something happens to the 12 heavenly stars, I'll still take care of this matter." Douglas said coldly. He wasn't convinced. Even if they failed, it wasn't up to the people from the Federal Investigation Agency to intervene. Just take care of your own matters. The blonde woman in the trench coat smiled slightly. "Do you think I want to care about your trivial matters? If it weren't for the orders from above, I wouldn't have bothered to come. Humph, talking about work in a garbage dump really affects my mood." Chapter 13:26. Douglas was enraged. What the hell was this? Since when did the FBI have the right to intervene in the CIA's affairs? Who gave them the authority to make such an arrangement? What right did she have to take over his affairs? "Stop right there," Douglas said. "You have to make this clear to me today. Who gave you permission to do this? Who arranged for you to do this? I acknowledge your abilities, but I will not allow you to look down on our abilities." "Douglas, no one looks down on the CIA's abilities. But in the case of Kevin Matthew, do you think the trouble caused by the CIA is a small problem?" The blonde woman in the trench coat was also furious. "I don't want to talk in a junkyard. I don't want to repeat this a third time." Even though Douglas was furious, he had no choice but to quickly shout to his subordinates outside the door, "Prepare the meeting room. Bring Miss Caroline there and wait for me." The blonde woman in the trench coat finally smiled. Immediately, someone came forward to lead her respectfully. "Miss Caroline, please come this way. We have already prepared the meeting room. What would you like to drink? I will prepare it for you immediately." "Coffee," the blonde woman in the trench coat said calmly. She followed him to the meeting room without looking back. Douglas walked to the door and waved to a skinny white man outside. "Cole, think of a way to restore the data on the computer I just broke. There are still things I need in the hard drive. I will give you 1 day. At this time tomorrow, give me the restored files." The skinny white man named Cole was dumbfounded. If there was a lot of data, he was afraid that 1 day would not be enough. Could he not give him a few more days? Sir, 3. No, 2 days will do. I am afraid that 1 day is a little tight. Douglas was in a very bad mood now. No one wanted to offend him at this time, so everyone was very careful with their words. They were all very careful, afraid that if they said something that would make Douglas unhappy, his anger would burn them. Okay, 48 hours. After 48 hours, you must restore all the data on the hard drive. Douglas knew that he was the one who smashed the computer, after all. It had nothing to do with anyone else, so he didn't care too much. After 48 hours, you must tidy up the information. You must return all the things inside to me. Yes, yes. The skinny white man nodded repeatedly. 48 hours. He probably wouldn't be able to sleep for the next 2 days and 2 nights. It wasn't a good thing to have a hot-tempered boss. She had smashed it, yet she still wanted him to repair it. She even wanted to limit his time. Sigh, this society was too unfair. Why was it that the leader could do whatever he wanted, while they had to think of every possible way to please him and do things for him? Douglas then said to another person, I hope that when I come back, my office will be back to how it was before. After saying this, Douglas went to the meeting room to look for Carolyn. Clearly, Carolyn wasn't joking with him. Someone really wanted to take over the Joint Investigations Department. He had to get to the bottom of this. When Douglas arrived at the conference room, Carolyn was drinking coffee and sitting quietly on the sofa in the conference room. When she saw Douglas walk in, she smiled and elegantly pointed to the sofa beside her. Have a seat. Do you want something to drink? This seems to be my territory, Douglas said. I won't hold back. You, on the other hand, should be a little more polite here. But I was born to be familiar with people. What should I do? Carolyn smiled faintly. No matter where I go, it doesn't take more than 10 minutes for me to feel that the place has become my territory. Tell me, what kind of mentality do you think I have? Douglas clenched his fists. He didn't answer Carolyn's question. He wouldn't be able to gain anything by continuing to discuss with this woman. Who gave the order for the Joint Investigations Department to cooperate with me? I will report it to the higher-ups now. I don't need your cooperation. You should analyze my mentality first. Why are you so anxious about work? On the contrary, Carolyn wasn't anxious at all. She knew Douglas's temperament, so she deliberately made him feel uncomfortable. Tell me, do you think I'm interested in the CIA's territory? If I apply to the higher-ups, will they allow me to work here and ask you to help me make space? Don't push your luck, Douglas said. We're not from the same system. The fact that you're here to cooperate with me today only means that we're cooperating for the benefit of the American government and the American people. It's for the country, and definitely not for any other reason. Carolyn, because you're a woman, I've always tolerated you a little. But if you must be so aggressive, then don't blame me for not giving the Joint Investigations Department face. First of all, you have to understand that I'm not here to talk to you about cooperating with you. I'm also not here to cooperate with you. Carolyn looked a little impatient. This is an order from the higher-ups. It's not that I like to clean up your mess. I'm also asking you to do things more cleanly in the future. Don't make me come out to clean up the mess. Douglas's face twitched. I don't need you to clean up the mess for me. Matthew's matter isn't over yet. I can handle it myself. The CIA doesn't need anyone to interfere. We can also handle this matter well. There's no point in you saying all this to me. If you're unhappy, go look for General Aude. Don't act all high and mighty in front of me. Don't always think that the CIA is one level higher than the Joint Investigations Department. Carolyn said, I'm here today to tell you that the things that the CIA can't handle, the Joint Investigations Department can. It doesn't matter if there's a department like yours in the future. Douglas slammed his hand on the table. Don't be too full of yourself. I know why you're here. You want to find me to find out all the information we have in Huaxia. Humph, then I'll tell you that I don't have any information. Even if you bring up General Aude, I'll only tell you 3 words. I don't know. If the Joint Investigations Department wants to interfere, then it has to be under my jurisdiction. I have the final say in this matter. I'm afraid you don't have the right to say that. Carolyn laughed arrogantly. Now, everything related to Kevin Matthew is under General Aid's jurisdiction. If you have any doubts, you can directly contact General Aide. I'm not here to lead the CIA. I'm just here to pass you a message. General Aide is quite dissatisfied with your command of this mission. You'd better think about how to explain it to the General first. Let me tell you one last time. I'm here this time because I still think highly of you. I don't think you're a useless person. So, I'm here to remind you to think carefully. After saying that, Carolyn stood up and threw the coffee cup in her hand heavily on the table. Don't think that I'm here to show off. We're the same kind of people. The pressure we bear is the same. If you want this matter to pass quickly in front of General Aide, then use your brain and think about what you should do. The General took over everything. Why didn't I know? Douglas was still very concerned about this news. This meant that General Aide didn't trust him. Chapter 13:27. Douglas suddenly threw his head back and laughed. Ha 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 ha, looks like the General doesn't intend to trust me anymore. It's already your turn to inform me. What else do I have to say? I'm not informing you. I'm just reminding you so that you can be mentally prepared. What kind of person is General Aide? You should know him better than I do, right? Carolyn snorted softly. You can act like this in front of me and anyone else. Do you dare to say no in front of General Aide? We all know what kind of status we have. Douglas, take care of yourself. As your former colleague, this is my last piece of advice to you. Before Carolyn had joined the Joint Investigations Department, she had also worked in the CIA. However, her abilities were too outstanding. Two tigers could not live on the same mountain. Therefore, it was inevitable that there would be some scheming between her and Douglas. But in the end, it was Douglas who won the final victory. When Douglas obtained the leadership of the CIA, Carolyn took the initiative to quit her job in the CIA. However, a talented person would never lack a suitable position. General Aide thought highly of her and arranged for her to be assigned to the Special Agent Command Department of the Central Division of the Federal Investigation Agency. From then on, Carolyn had displayed her incomparable leadership skills. In a short period of time, the merits of the special agents of the Joint Investigations Department were much higher than those of the CIA during the same period. From then on, Douglas secretly competed with Carolyn. No matter whether it was a big or small mission, he put in all his effort. If it wasn't for the damned reward, it was for the face of the CIA. If the Joint Investigations Department took away this little bit of face, how could the CIA continue to show its face in the future? Whether it was the CIA or the Joint Investigations Department, they all had a direct superior, General Aide, who led all the internal special agent departments in the United States. Any mission they carried out was given to them by General Aide. Including this time, when the CIA dispatched the 12 Heavenly Stars to Huaxia to capture people, Douglas only dared to issue the order under the condition that he got General Aide's permission. Carolyn, I have a question for you, Douglas said. General Ard also knows about you and Kevin Matthew, right? Why didn't you arrange for you to do this from the beginning? Why didn't you stop me from arranging for the 12 Heavenly Stars? Why did you directly use other methods to bring Kevin Matthew back to China? Carolyn turned around and looked at Douglas. As the leader of the CIA, you should know what to say and what not to say, right? Douglas, don't challenge my bottom line. Don't talk about things you shouldn't talk about. Are you feeling guilty? Obviously, I hit the nail on the head. You still have special feelings for Kevin Matthew, don't you? Douglas laughed and said, I don't understand. Could it be that General Ard didn't consider this problem before? Douglas, the General naturally has his reasons for not arranging for me to go. If he arranged for me to go, he also has his reasons for arranging for me to go. It's not up to you to interrupt and guess. Carolyn said, you should first think about how you are going to answer to General Aide. You don't need to worry about my matters. If I can bring Kevin Matthew back, it won't be to compete with you." Douglas laughed and said, "Of course. You are so great. You are only doing it for the benefit of the country. Ha ha ha. Everyone can say such nice words. But only you don't dare to admit that you will also do it for glory. Hypocrite. Too hypocritical. You can say whatever you want. Sometimes, glory doesn't mean anything." Carolyn laughed coldly. "You have enough glory, right? So what? If you fail this time, you will still be thrown into the abyss. In our line of work, we can never go down the wrong path, and we can never fail a mission. Once we fail, it means the end. Do you understand?" Once they failed, it meant the end. Only they knew how heavy these words were. Every time he went on a mission, the pressure in Douglas' heart would be so great that he had to rely on taking some illegal drugs to keep his mind clear. At the beginning, he only used drugs like morphine and methadone to temporarily relieve his pain through medical channels. Later on, these drugs could no longer satisfy his drug addiction, nor could they stop his pain. They could not relieve his pressure, and he would often secretly smoke some marijuana at home. This cycle repeated itself, and recently, he even needed injections to relieve the immense pressure in his heart. Once he tried something like this for the first time, it would be very difficult to control himself from doing it a second time. The drug addiction would often torment Douglas in the middle of the night to the point that he could not bear it. He knew very well how harmful these things were to him, and he also knew that he was walking down a path of no return. However, he could not bear this temptation that was constantly present. Every time Douglas was extremely depressed, he would always want to use these things to fill up the emptiness and fear in his heart. Even if he knew how harmful these things were, he still could not give up. Today, after hearing the news brought by Carolyn, Douglas felt as if a shadow had been cast over his heart. General Add's distrust and abandonment of him was the greatest denial of his work. All this time, his contributions to the country and to the CIA, were they going to deny him just like that? There was no room for negotiation, and it was over just like that? This wasn't the result he wanted. He still wanted to continue serving the country and work hard for the country. Why would his entire life be denied because of one failure? Douglas really couldn't figure it out. The immense pain coming from his temples was unbearable. He quickly closed the door of the conference room and took out a small transparent pen-shaped bottle from his pocket. He frantically twisted the cap open and poured out a few small white pills. He didn't care how many there were, and swallowed them all in one go. The numbing effect of the medicine seemed to be completely unable to quell the immense pain in Douglas' heart. He clutched his chest, and after a long silence, Douglas suddenly exploded like a crazy bear. He smashed everything in the meeting room into smithereens in one breath. The people outside heard the loud smashing sounds inside and could not help but mutter in their hearts. How much hatred did he have? The office over there had just been cleaned up for him, and the meeting room here was completely destroyed by him. This time, it was completely destroyed. As Douglas vented his emotions, he thought about how he should find General Add and what he should say when he saw him. These were the things he wanted to figure out at the moment. However, the more he smashed, the more his brain was like a pile of paste, a mess. If a bucket of ice was ruthlessly poured on him now, he would definitely sober up a little. It was a pity that the ice bucket challenge of caring for people with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis was already outdated. Now, the dung bucket challenge of caring for people with amyotrophic lateral sclerosis was the most popular. He did not even have a place to find ice. Just as Douglas was about to break down, a call came in. It was from that special mobile phone. It was a mobile phone that could only be contacted when orders were given, and only General Add would call. Chapter 1328. General. Douglas tried his best to make his voice sound as normal as possible. What orders do you have? Please instruct me. The person on the other end of the phone was silent for about 7 or 8 seconds before he finally said, What happened recently must have affected your mood. You have to pay attention to adjust your state of mind. Don't worry, General. I won't let you down. As for Kevin Matthews' matter, I will think of a way. Although the CIA lost the 12 heavenly stars, there are still others and me. Please believe me, General. Douglas was begging for a chance. Heh heh heh. General Ade's laughter was always hard for Douglas to grasp. The top power of the CIA agents is probably the 12 heavenly stars. What other people can you give me? Don't deceive yourself anymore. As if struck by lightning, Douglas stood up with a bang. General, give me another chance. Believe me, I will personally settle this matter. I won't let you down again. I guarantee it with my life. General, please allow me to go to Huaxia. The voice on the other end of the phone was still as calm as before. Arrange for you to go to Huaxia? Yes, this is indeed a good idea. However, if you are subdued again in Huaxia, how are you going to cover up the lies of those useless people? Your teaching is indeed very good. From the moment they were captured until now, they have not admitted that this matter has anything to do with our government, nor have they admitted that it was the rotten idea of a CIA leader like you. They said it was a personal grudge. Do you know what a personal grudge is? But, General, I can't just sit here and wait for my death, right? I can't accept this. The person who can't accept this the most is me. Douglas took a deep breath. I beg for a chance. Do you understand what I'm saying or not? There was finally a hint of impatience in General Aud's voice. Douglas immediately realized his impoliteness as soon as he asked this question. He apologized profusely and didn't say anything else. Only then did General Aude retract his anger. If you fail to participate in this matter again, it will undoubtedly be announcing to the world that this matter is not a personal grudge of the 12 heavenly stars, but related to you, the CIA, and the U.S. government. Do you understand? I understand. I understand everything now. Although Douglas was unwilling, General Aud's words were not to be doubted. He had no right to refute and could only follow General Aud's orders. Perhaps, his obedience would make General Aude a little bit kind-hearted and remember his contribution. Otherwise, General Aude would take back all his authority. He had crawled his whole life to reach this position. If he suddenly lost everything now, what should he do? Where should he go from here? Douglas had been working as a secret agent for 10 years and managed a secret agent for 10 years after he became an adult. It could be said that he had dedicated his entire life to the secret agent career in the U.S. Although he had not done much good in his life, everything he had done was for the benefit of the U.S. government. This was something that no one, not even General Aude, could deny. Douglas, do you still remember the reason why you joined the CIA in the first place? General Aude suddenly talked to him about something that happened many years ago. What was your original intention? Now, has your heart changed? No, it will never change, Douglas said seriously. Douglas said seriously, the moment I joined the CIA, I knew that I would fight for this for the rest of my life, until the end of my life. As long as what I do is meaningful to the country, is beneficial to the government, is for the United States of America, anything I do is meaningful. The benefits of the country, the government, and the people are above everything else. I am ready to make any sacrifice for the country, the government, and the people. General Aude smiled. Since you said that, it means that you have not forgotten your mission. That makes me feel more at ease. Now, it is time for you to make a sacrifice for the country. Are you ready? What? General, is what you said true? Aude was stunned. Could it be that the general had given him a chance to participate in this matter again? General, I am ready to make any sacrifice for the country. No matter what you need me to do, please tell me directly. I will not complain. General Ade's voice finally revealed a smile. You are indeed someone I value. Douglas, the reason why I chose you to be the commander of the CIA back then was because of your firm determination. Yes, General. For the benefit of the country and the government, I am willing to do anything. Douglas suddenly became excited. He had even forgotten that a few minutes ago, he was still depressed and was relieving the huge sense of loss in his heart with medication. The world was really ever-changing. It would always inadvertently open a new door for you and give you a new path to walk on. There was never an obstacle that could not be overcome. At this moment, Douglas raised his head. It was as if he really saw the words floating in the sky. This is not a problem. For the benefit of the country, for the government to have a perfect excuse and to give an explanation to the world, I can only sacrifice you. The 12 heavenly stars privately came to Hua Xia to seek revenge because of your improper supervision and management. General Ade said, "You have to bear the responsibility for this matter. So, from today onwards, you are no longer a member of the CIA." Buzz. Douglas's ears rang. He suspected that he had heard wrongly. He was no longer a member of the CIA? "General, you don't play this kind of joke with me, right?" Douglas couldn't believe that General Ade's so-called sacrifice was actually this kind of sacrifice. He didn't want him to continue participating in Kevin Matthews' matter. General Ade's answer was also very firm. "Then do you think you have anything else that you can sacrifice for the country and the government? Everything you have is given to you by the country and the government. It is not your own. Do you understand? So, the only thing you can do to repay the government is what you can do for yourself. Hurry up and arrange the handover of work." "All right, the people I arranged should be arriving soon." After that, General Ade didn't even give Douglas a chance to explain and directly hung up the phone. At this time, there was a heated discussion in the hall of the CIA. A short-haired man in his early 30s, wearing a black suit, was holding a government appointment letter in his hand. He announced to everyone that the CIA would no longer listen to Douglas, but would listen to him, Christian. Once this news was announced, it caused a stir in the entire CIA building. Many people seemed to understand why Douglas was so angry just now. It turned out that he had already been removed from his position. Then, he really shouldn't have done that just now. He even ordered others to do things for him. He really didn't understand his own position clearly. After Carolyn had left, Douglas had made preparations to face General Ade. However, no matter what, he could not believe that he would end up like this. "Good. Since you don't care about our old relationship and don't remember the contributions I made back then, you can't blame me for being cruel and merciless when you want to abandon me after I've outlived my usefulness." Chapter 1329. If you want to take over the CIA, I'm afraid you'll have to go through me first. Douglas's sudden appearance undoubtedly brought an instant of passion to the entire building. It was not that there had never been a fight between agents in the CIA, but there had never been a situation where a top agent like Douglas had made a move. Douglas was able to get to where he was today by relying on his ability and strength. The 12 heavenly stars had all seen him make a move and knew that Douglas's strength was amazing, but after all, most of them had never seen Douglas in anger. Today, they finally saw the legendary strongest officer in the history of the CIA make a move. The moment Douglas appeared, his aura was extraordinary. The biting cold wind of his fist cut through the air like a sharp sword, directly stabbing toward Christian's face. This move went straight for the vital part, and it was a killer move. It seemed that Douglas was really going all out. Just as everyone exclaimed that Douglas was too ruthless and was worried for the newcomer Christian, the new officer did not show any weakness. Just like that, he gently raised his hand and grabbed Douglas's fist, which seemed to be unstoppable, in his palm. Bang! The fist and palm collided, and the murderous aura that erupted was so strong. The atmosphere of the entire space was instantly immersed in this strong murderous aura. If one person had the intention to kill, there would obviously not be such a strong aura. This meant that both people who were fighting had the intention to kill. "I didn't expect Senior to welcome me like this." Christian smiled slightly. "The general didn't say that you were such a warm and passionate person. When can we exchange jobs?" "If you want to make a living in the CIA, you'll have to go through me first," Douglas said. "I don't want the CIA to go downhill. Even if it's the general's arrangement, I won't agree to a person without strength leading the CIA." Christian pretended to be surprised and smiled. "Senior, you're really bold. You don't even take the general's words seriously. This junior really admires you. However, if Senior doesn't even know these rules, I can only represent the general to give you a lesson on respecting your superiors.
You.
Douglas wasn't pretending. He really looked down on Christian. 10 years ago, when he came to the CIA, his aura was much stronger than Christian's. When he came, his predecessor respectfully handed over all the work to him. All the agents on the job came to meet him one by one, and each of them wrote a plan for him to see how motivated they were. The fates of these people were all in his hands. The 12 heavenly stars were selected by him from so many agents back then, making them the sharpest blade of the CIA. Indeed, in the past 10 years, the 12 heavenly stars had brought countless honors to the CIA, and also brought countless honors to him. It was these honors that made him begin to understand a principle. If he wanted a foothold in this society, he would have a foothold in this circle. He to speak with honor to speak. Without honor, they would have nothing. What did it mean to have nothing? It meant to have no foothold. At this moment, what did this newcomer? There was nothing. How could he to compare to him? Douglas was not convinced. A newbie with nothing dared to challenge him? Isn't this joke a bit too much? Douglas, do you think you're much better than me? Christian held Douglas's fist tightly. Then I'll tell you today that you're thinking too much. Your past honors are all in the past. The honors that should be given to you by the higher-ups have also been given to you. Now, you have no honor, only a mistake. A mistake that caused the CIA to lose more than half of its combat power. This is unforgivable. Do you understand? The 12 heavenly stars were nurtured by me. Even if all of them fall into my hands, it is not up to an outsider like you to point fingers. Who do you think you are? Douglas was originally very sensitive about the 12 heavenly stars. This newcomer actually dared to touch a sore spot in front of everyone in the CIA. This was the most direct insult to him. The most concise provocation. Christian sneered. I finally understand why the general wants you to leave. It is because you think too highly of yourself. I will tell you on behalf of the general that everything in the CIA, including you, belongs to the government. Nothing belongs to you. The loss of the 12 heavenly stars is the government's loss. It is not your loss alone. In this place, there is nothing that belongs to you, including the air. Do you understand?
You.
Douglas was burning with anger. He wanted to pull his fist away, but he realized that the other party was really not simple. He tried to exert force several times, but he could not pull his fist out of the other party's hand. This guy is a little interesting. Christian still had a sneer on his face. Why, are you trying to say that you didn't see that I had some ability? I really didn't see that you had some ability. Douglas revealed an evil smile that was filled with killing intent. Since that's the case, don't blame me for being serious with you. Kid, I will let you see what the highest combat power of the CIA is. The moment his voice fell, Douglas's fist suddenly broke free from Christian's control. Immediately after, a whip kick swept across like a rolling mat. The speed was much, much faster than the previous punch. Christian only had less than half a second to hesitate before he felt a strong wind on his face. The speed of this kick was really too fast. It did not give him any chance or time to react at all. This time, Christian could not deal with this kick as easily as before. He was unable to grab Douglas' ankle in a graceful manner. He could only raise his arms and take Douglas' kick head-on. The huge impact made Christian move his feet continuously to ease the impact. In the eyes of others, his footsteps were more or less in a sorry state. Indeed, Douglas' all-out attack wasn't something that could be easily withstood. Christian, whose arms were still numb, knew that if he did not subdue this crazy guy today, he would not be able to establish his prestige and authority in the CIA. None of the agents present stepped forward to intervene in this matter. Firstly, they were indeed afraid of Douglas. Secondly, they also wanted to see how capable this newcomer was. If he didn't have any real combat power, they wouldn't be convinced. What else do you have? Take it all out. Although Christian's footsteps were a little awkward, his aura did not diminish. Could it be that Officer Douglas, who has always claimed to be the strongest in the CIA, only has this little ability? The CIA can't be so weak, right? Although this sentence was a little hateful, it would make most of the people in the CIA support Douglas in their hearts. But it did not matter. This was the result that Christian wanted. Let them all support Douglas. Then, he would let everyone know his strength in front of everyone. He would let them know the consequences of standing on the wrong side. Only in this way could these people completely submit to him in the future and be used by him. I will make you regret it. There was only cruelty left on Douglas's face. He wanted to prove to General Aud that his choice was wrong. The CIA could not do without him. No one could replace him. No matter who it was, if they threatened his position, he would not hesitate to kill them. The CIA was his. If others wanted to interfere, they would have to die. Chapter 1330. After Christian received the order to come here, General Aud talked to him alone for more than an hour. They mainly talked about how to make Douglas angry. As long as Douglas was angry, he would have a good reason to take him down and push all the trouble caused by the 12 stars onto Douglas. In this way, there would be someone to take responsibility for everything. General Adler would have something to do with the country, and the CIA would no longer have anything to do with the Huashia incident. It was equivalent to the CIA doing a big reshuffle, kicking out the scapegoat and cleaning up the stains on their own bodies. That way, no one would ever associate what the 12 heavenly stars had done in Huashia with the U.S. government. Douglas and the 12 heavenly stars were the ones who were tainted. It had nothing to do with the CIA or the U.S. government. The big reshuffle required Douglas to be the scapegoat in front of everyone. Christian's first task was to make Douglas angry. Originally, General Aud had taught Christian some tricks to infuriate Douglas. However, Christian didn't use any of these tricks. Douglas was already infuriated. Christian had a headache at first. What if Douglas could endure the humiliation? In order to prevent himself from falling into a state of being unrighteous, if he really did not get angry, how was he going to explain it to the general? Christian sneered. He grabbed the collar of his shirt and tore open the buttons of his shirt. He looked very dashing. Since things had come to this point, he could not be blamed for being ruthless. Senior Douglas, today I will show you what is the highest combat power of the CIA today and in the future. I will also let you know what is the strength and ability that the leader of the American Secret Service should have. You are old, and it's time for you to retire. Was this the blessing for the replacement of the old and the new? In the face of the younger generation's provocation, Douglas used practical actions to tell him that if he wanted to speak, he had to prove it with his fists. Fists had no power, but they had no right to speak. Each of Douglas' punches exhausted all of his strength. Every punch wanted to completely destroy this bastard in front of him who had almost driven him crazy. However, the serious Christian was not as easy to deal with as before. He faced Douglas's punch head-on. Douglas's punch missed, and he instantly felt a sharp pain in his lower abdomen. It was unknown when Christian had delivered a tricky knee strike, but the force was enough to make Douglas suffer. This was not the power of a human. How could Christian change into another person in the blink of an eye? This power was too terrifying. And there was also his speed. At first, he couldn't dodge Douglas's kick at all. But now, Douglas's continuous punches and kicks were all at full strength. Not only was Christian able to dodge quickly, but he was also able to seize the opportunity to deal a fatal blow to him. How could this person's speed change so much in the blink of an eye? What method did he use? A scene suddenly flashed in front of Douglas's eyes. That's right, before the fight, Christian only had one abnormal behavior. He used his mouth to remove the button on his shirt, but he didn't spit it out. There must be something wrong with that thing. There was indeed something wrong with that thing. Something that could instantly increase a person's explosive strength was definitely a product of illegal drugs. However, this button-shaped hidden drug was a special drug developed by the highest medical research center in the Army for special agents. Taking this drug would not cause any harm to the body. It could stimulate explosive strength for a short period of time. The only side effect was that it would cause drowsiness for the next 2 days. As for why this happened, the Medical Research Center had not found the root cause, so this drug was not really used. Even if it was used, it could only be used as a life-saving item after the completion of a special agent's mission. This time, General Audet decided to test this thing on Christian because he knew Douglas's strength. Of course, he also believed in Christian's strength. However, when the two of them unleashed their strongest combat power, he could not guarantee that Christian would win. After all, Douglas had rich combat experience. Once the fight reached the most critical moment, what he needed was experience. So, he gave this banned drug to Christian so that he would have to take it when he fought with Douglas. This way, first of all, Christian's victory was guaranteed. Secondly, he could see how powerful this drug was. After all, there were no real agents who tested the drug before. The ability of this drug to stimulate was calculated according to the strength of the person who took it. It was equivalent to the multiplication formula. It was equivalent to 2 times 2 was 4, and 9 times 9 was 81. This was the power of this drug. The higher the strength of the person who took it, the more terrifying it was. Now that Christian had confirmed this, the next scene was enough to shock everyone in the CIA building. Douglas was once again controlled by Christian, and his leg was caught by Christian. This time, Christian wasn't going to be so polite. He was like a mad beast as he swung Douglas into the air. Douglas' body was in front of everyone, like a flying chair that was thrown out. It directly smashed into the onlookers. No one was willing to be hit by such a huge impact. After everyone dodged, Douglas' body landed heavily on the wall. The huge vibration made more people realize that there was another war between agents in this building. This time, it was not a small dispute because of differing opinions, but a struggle at the top, which meant that there was a change of power in the CIA. Douglas was now 100% sure that this guy in front of him had taken some kind of banned drug. The power of this drug was too terrifying. Obviously, for him to be able to get it, it must have come from the general. General Adler's previous phone call was undoubtedly a notice to him, telling him to take the blame for this time's mishap on his own. Someone had to be sacrificed, someone had to bear the responsibility, and he was the most suitable person. Ha 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 ha. Douglas laughed wildly. You're already prepared. No matter how I struggle, I can't escape my fate, right? Then come. If I can die in this office building that I've worked hard for the government for 20 years, it's worth it. Sir, you made the first move. Everyone here can testify for me. Christian smiled slightly. Originally, we could have solved the problem peacefully. However, the general has orders to kill anyone who wants to disturb his arrangements. Senior, I believe you won't be convinced. Then, I can only apologize. Life or death, it's your choice. After saying that, Christian directly pounced forward and pressed Douglas to the ground. His left arm wrapped around Douglas' neck and pulled him up. Giving up so soon? Douglas's entire face was flushed red, and he couldn't say a single word. He could only gasp for air as much as he could in order to maintain his consciousness. Christian subdued Douglas as he announced to everyone, "From today onwards, I'm the supreme leader of the CIA. If anyone has any doubts, you can come to my office and discuss it with me in detail." After saying that last sentence, Christian's arm suddenly exerted force. A hair-raising sound came from Douglas' neck, who had no strength to resist. His cervical vertebrae were completely broken, and even his trachea was torn. Douglas died with his eyes open. Chapter 1331. A day later, Carolyn was on a flight to Huaxia when she learned about the news released by the government, including the arrest of Douglas, who had destroyed the relationship between China and the United States. The report also stated that Douglas, the mastermind who had arranged for the CIA personnel to harm the relationship between the two countries, had committed suicide to avoid punishment. This matter had basically come to an end. Carolyn was very clear that things were not that simple. Douglas could not have committed suicide. Moreover, he had only dared to issue orders because he was following General Aid's instructions. He was not the real commander. There was only one reason for him to take on this responsibility. Just because he had failed. A failure was worthless. His value was reflected in the role he played in taking on the responsibility of the matter. After all, Douglas was an important leader of the CIA. It was more than enough for him to take responsibility for this matter. The Huaxia side couldn't say anything else. After all, the top leader of the CIA had committed suicide to avoid punishment. How could Huaxia not understand the truth of this matter? Naturally, they knew that this was a conspiracy of the United States. However, there was no evidence to prove that they were conspiring. They could only accept such a sincere apology from the United States. At the very least, the CIA had suffered a serious setback. Carolyn was very clear that she had been pushed onto a path of no return by General Audet. This mission had no other choice but to succeed. If she also failed, what would happen? She would face an even more tragic end than Douglas. In order to cover up some of the government scandals, General Audet was willing to sacrifice everything and give up any of his subordinates. Everyone knew this very well. Douglas could be said to be one of the general's subordinates who had made a lot of contributions. In the face of having to find someone to take the blame, General Audet did not hesitate to put the blame on Douglas. Only in this way could the government's orders be hidden in the depths of the earth forever and never be known by others. A long, long time ago, General Audet had understood this principle. Only the dead could unconditionally accept all of your framing. Only the dead would not expose the dirty things you had done. This was something that no living person could do. The world of secret agents was complicated to begin with. What they knew were the most confidential secrets of their side, and what they snooped on were the most confidential secrets of the other side. Therefore, people like them were destined not to live for long. The more you know, the more dangerous it is. The more you know, the easier it is to die. This simple logic is understood by everyone. Most of the time, there was only one reason for people to kill, and that was, you know too much. Therefore, most of the time, knowing too much wasn't a good thing. At the very least, Carolyn was having a headache right now. How good would it be if she didn't know about this matter? But once you enter the Secret Service industry, you will forever lose the power and opportunity to make your own choices. The only thing you can do is to constantly learn about all kinds of secrets, deal with all kinds of secrets, and deal with all kinds of people who know too many secrets. In the end, because you know too many secrets, you will be dealt with by others. This was a cycle that didn't have a good ending. However, all of the special agents were happy about it. As of now, Carolyn had already reached the stage of dealing with people who knew too many secrets. She wasn't sure how far she was from the next step. Perhaps it would be tomorrow, or perhaps it would be in the next second. Most of the time, she was in control of the fate of others, but she could never predict her own fate. This was perhaps the most ridiculous thing about being the highest leader of the Secret Service. Although most of the members of the Special Investigations Bureau were like those in movies, holding an identity card with a badge, they would take it out when they saw someone, and confidently say, FBI. However, there was a portion of them who wouldn't do that. The missions they carried out were the most dangerous, and the people they arrested were the most difficult to arrest. And Carolyn was the highest commander of this group of people. For this trip to Huaxia, her command was completely different from Douglas. Douglas stayed behind by himself and sent out his most capable subordinates. On the other hand, Carolyn personally stepped forward and didn't let any of her subordinates participate in this matter. Carolyn was worried that the more people there were, the more chaotic things would be. Apart from this, she also had another advantage, and that was her relationship with Kevin Matthew. When the plane finally landed, Carolyn wasn't in a hurry to make any arrangements. She directly took a taxi and left the airport. She went to the hotel to adjust to the time difference. She didn't want to meet Kevin Matthew again after so many years with 2 dark circles under her eyes. That would be too damaging to her image. After adjusting to the time difference, Carolyn took out her computer and turned it on. After thinking for a long time, she quickly wrote an email and sent it directly to Kevin Matthews' email. Kevin, we haven't contacted each other for a long time. I wonder if you've been well recently. I heard that the CIA sent people to Huaxia to ask you to come back. I wonder how you've been doing recently. Are you still used to living in Huaxia? If life in Huaxia isn't satisfactory, you can come back at any time. The door to America will always be open for you, and my door will always be open for you. If there's a chance, I want to meet you to make sure that you're not in any danger, and that you're not being threatened by anyone in Huaxia. Carolyn. Carolyn wasn't confident that Kevin Matthew would come to see her, but she firmly believed that Kevin Matthew would definitely reply to her email. As long as Kevin Matthew replied, she would be able to use the most advanced network tracking software to find out where the email was sent from. This way, she would be able to take advantage of the situation. No matter what, the first thing she needed to know was Kevin Matthew's location. Otherwise, with Beijing being so big and so many people, where could she go to find him? If she didn't use some special methods, it would be impossible for her to find Kevin Matthew. It was just that they hadn't contacted each other for a long time. If she suddenly sent Kevin Matthew an email, Kevin Matthew would probably be a little surprised. Carolyn could only pray to God as to whether or not he would believe her. After waiting patiently for a few hours, Carolyn finally received a reply from Kevin Matthew. Matthew's reply was very simple. There was only one line: "Thank you for your concern. I'm fine. It was my own choice to stay in Huaxia. Please respect my choice. I wish you all the best too, Matthew." After receiving the reply, Carolyn immediately launched the location tracking software. The signal quickly used the satellite to locate the location where the email was sent. Just as she was about to succeed, a line of flashing red words suddenly appeared on the computer. Signal tracking has been intercepted. What? Signal tracking has been intercepted. Carolyn was shocked. This was the most advanced location tracking system. How could it be intercepted? Could it be that Huaxia's network interception system was already so advanced? That was impossible, because all advanced technology originated from the United States. They were the only ones who intercepted and eavesdropped on others. No one had ever intercepted them before. A minute later, Carolyn received another email from Kevin Matthew. "Don't try to find me. The person who developed the signal tracking system you are using now is Dr. Jean. I am very close friends with Dr. Jean. When he was developing the system, I was also involved. Therefore, this system is of no use to me." Carolyn had just finished reading this email when another line of flashing red words appeared on the computer screen. "Your location has been tracked. Please evacuate quickly." Chapter 1332. After Matthew received this email, his mind suddenly went blank. He never thought that Carolyn would send him such an email. However, Matthew quickly regained his senses. Indeed, Matthew knew exactly who Carolyn was and what her identity was. Carolyn was a member of the Joint Investigations Bureau, and she wasn't an ordinary agent. She was a member of the Special Intelligence Department. Clearly, Carolyn had been dragged into this matter regarding him. Carolyn was definitely not looking for him for something as simple as a casual chat. It was definitely about him. Therefore, after much consideration, Matthew made comprehensive network defense preparations before replying to Carolyn's email. Sure enough, after he replied to the email, his computer was soon disturbed by a tracking signal. Fortunately, Matthew was prepared for this. The network defense shield immediately cut off the dangerous signal source, and Carolyn was unable to trace the source of Matthew's network signal. Otherwise, his current location would have been exposed to Carolyn's computer screen. It wasn't that he was afraid of Carolyn finding him. Matthew wasn't afraid of seeing Carolyn. He was afraid that his location would be exposed because this place was a very confidential location in Huaxia. It definitely couldn't be exposed easily. Now, whether it was the CIA or the Joint Investigations Bureau, the signal tracking software used by the people was developed by Dr. Jean. At that time, Dr. Jean had indeed discussed some things about this software with him. Therefore, Matthew could easily set up a defensive wall to prevent this tracking software from invading his computer. This ensured that Carolyn had no way of finding out about this confidential location. Originally, not contacting Carolyn was naturally the best way to solve this problem. However, the relationship between Matthew and Carolyn was so delicate, so Matthew couldn't help but reply to her. This was what made Matthew feel the most conflicted. After Matthew got in touch with Carolyn, he realized that Carolyn was also looking for him. After much consideration, he decided to tell Soo-yoon about this matter. Otherwise, because of him, too much unnecessary trouble had already been caused. He really didn't want to have any more trouble. However, he didn't want to hurt the woman who came to find him this time. Soon after, Carolyn's email came again. I don't mean to offend you. It's just that if I don't do this, I won't be able to find out where you are, and I won't be able to determine how you're doing right now. I just want to know where you are. I just want to know how your life is. That's all I need to know. Matthew had no way of determining whether Carolyn's words were true or not. However, he had to admit that he could feel a little bit of friendship in her words. Perhaps, more or less, Carolyn still cared about him a little. However, this matter was related to the interests of the country. Personal feelings were so insignificant in this matter. Carolyn was a member of the Federal Investigation Agency, a member of the government. How could she abandon her mission just because of some personal feelings she had with him in the past? Matthew was caught in a dilemma. He didn't want to hurt Carolyn, but he also didn't want his country's authority to be challenged. How should he choose? This was the most troublesome thing for Matthew now. For some unknown reason, Matthew sent Carolyn another email. At the same time, he was also tracking Carolyn's location. I advise you not to get involved in this matter. It was my own choice to return to Hua-Xia. If the US government really cared about their so-called human rights, they wouldn't have arranged for you to harass me again and again. I won't change my mind. I wish you all the best in the future. Just as Matthew was tracking the location of the hotel where Carolyn was staying, the signal source was suddenly cut off. Obviously, Carolyn had turned off her computer. Matthew's heart couldn't calm down for a long time. What should he do? Once he told Soo-yoon about this matter, wouldn't that mean that Carolyn was sentenced to death? The reason why Douglas had said that Carolyn had an advantage in the mission of chasing Kevin Matthew back was because Kevin Matthew and Carolyn had a relationship that didn't involve political factors. It was completely love at first sight between Carolyn and Kevin Matthew. Sparks quickly flew between the two of them, and they lived together. That period of time was probably the best period of Kevin Matthew's life. He and Carolyn met at the Staples Center. That day was the NBA's Christmas game. They were both NBA fans, and their seats coincidentally placed them together. The two of them liked the same team and the same star. After the game, Kevin Matthews' car was inexplicably deflated by someone, and he couldn't leave for a while. At that time, Carolyn reached out to him and said that she would send him home. Kevin Matthew lived in Seattle, and he drove a day before he came to Los Angeles to watch the game. After learning that Kevin Matthew didn't have a residence in Los Angeles, Carolyn immediately invited him to stay at her house temporarily. It wouldn't be too late to leave after calling a tow truck to fix the car. It was already too late now, and it would probably be impossible to fix all 4 tires in a short time. In the end, Kevin Matthew didn't reject Carolyn's good intentions. After the two of them returned to Carolyn's house in Los Angeles, Carolyn took out some good wine to entertain him. The two of them drank while talking about basketball, and before they knew it, they drank too much. Wine was often like a bit of oil in the middle of a raging fire. Once there was a spark, the fire would instantly become fierce and huge. In the end, the two of them hugged each other and rolled on the bed sheets. That period of time was a 2-month-long vacation for Carolyn. She had suffered some minor injuries from the previous mission, and these 2 months were also for her to recuperate. During these 2 months, she spent every day with Kevin Matthew. Soon, she found out about Kevin Matthew's identity, but Kevin Matthew never asked her about it. It was only when her vacation ended and she had to go back to work that she asked Kevin Matthew. She wanted to know if he would accept a woman who was a secret agent as his girlfriend. Her time was not fixed, and her job was full of danger. Everything showed that she was not a suitable person to be his girlfriend. Even so, Matthew did not hesitate. He said that no matter what she did, he would use all his love to prove that his heart was passionate about her. Just like that, the two people passionately in love walked together without hesitation. It was under such circumstances that the government wanted to use Carolyn's relationship to persuade Kevin Matthew to join the U.S. military. At that time, Carolyn had no choice but to think of a way to persuade Kevin Matthew. Kevin Matthew was at a loss. He suddenly felt that the relationship between him and Carolyn was not true love at all. It was just Carolyn sacrificing herself for the government. The feeling of being played made Kevin Matthew very unhappy. He argued with Carolyn about this matter, and Carolyn was also very angry because of Matthew's suspicion of her. In the end, the two of them parted on bad terms. Unexpectedly, after so long, the two of them still contacted each other because of this matter. Although the topic did not change, they were much calmer and more mature than before. They knew that many things were not what they wanted. Therefore, there was no argument, and everything was very peaceful. Chapter 1333. After a sleepless night, Matthew was still in a daze when he went to work the next day. The lack of sleep made it very difficult for him to support his body. Therefore, he went back early in the afternoon to rest. Matthew lay on his bed and spent a few hours in a daze. By the time he got out of bed, it was already past 9 in the evening. Other than eating something in the morning, Matthew had not drunk a single drop of water for the entire day. He made a simple bowl of noodles and ate it in 2 or 3 mouthfuls. After thinking for a while, he resolutely picked up his jacket and walked out. Over an hour later, Matthew took a taxi and arrived at the lobby of the Intercontinental Hotel. This was the location he had tracked down. According to the information he had received, Matthew was able to confirm the location of the signal. However, he was unable to determine the floor. Matthew walked to the housekeeping department and made some inquiries. After that, he decided to go upstairs and search floor by floor. From the 4th floor onwards, there were guest rooms. According to the information he had received, from 0418, 0518, all the way to the top floor, there was a possibility that Carolyn had stayed in this place. Matthew walked to every floor and walked to every possible room. He did not know exactly what he wanted to do here. However, he had come here completely out of his control. He felt as though his body was a puppet being controlled by someone. Just as Matthew reached the 11th floor, the door to room 1118 suddenly opened. In that instant, Matthew even suspected that he was dreaming. However, when Carolyn's clear face appeared before his eyes, he knew that he wasn't dreaming. He instantly became much more clear-headed. In his heart, he constantly questioned himself as to why he had come to this place for no reason at all. This was simply akin to a little lamb obediently running into the mouth of a wolf. He had completely thrown himself into a trap. There was simply no need for Carolyn to waste any energy or methods. He had already fallen into her pocket. Although Kevin Matthew was now clear-headed, it was already too late. Carolyn would not allow a cooked duck that had landed in front of her to fly away. Come in and talk. Carolyn was unexpectedly calm. She wasn't as aggressive as Matthew had imagined her to be. She had no intention of taking action against him. Long time no see. You've lost a lot of weight.
You too.
Matthew didn't reject Carolyn's invitation and followed her into room 1118. He knew that there might be a group of agents waiting for him in the room, but he still couldn't help but follow Carolyn into the room. Other than Carolyn, there was no one else in the room, which surprised Matthew once again. Could it be that Carolyn was the only one from the Joint Investigations Bureau who came here? He was too careless. Previously, the CIA had sent out the 12 heavenly stars, but they had not been able to gain any advantage in Huaxia. Want to know why I didn't leave? Carolyn gave a faint smile. That night, when I realized that you had tracked down my location, I indeed wanted to leave. That's because I had come to Huaxia alone. If you had immediately brought those people who could subdue the 12 heavenly stars over, I would definitely have been captured. That's why I'm afraid. After pausing for a moment, Carolyn continued, However, I thought about it again. You wouldn't have done that. If you wanted to do that, you wouldn't have needed to reply to my email at all. You could have done it in a more subtle way so that I wouldn't have been able to detect it. However, you didn't do that. Therefore, I believe that you don't really want to make things difficult for me. You're overthinking it. Matthew denied. I just don't have the time or energy to hide it. Then why did you come here alone? Carolyn said, because you thought that I had left. Moreover, since you came here alone, it means that you don't want my identity to be known by the people in Huaxia, right? Matthew was a little angry. I've said it before. You're overthinking it. I don't have the time or energy to care about you. I've reminded you to leave earlier. This is the last piece of advice I can give you. If you continue to be stubborn, I won't be able to continue helping you. Carolyn smiled faintly. You're still so stubborn and cute. You obviously care a lot, but you have to pretend that you don't care at all. You're just like you were when we broke up. Do you still remember what you said to me back then? How many times do you want me to repeat it before you're willing to leave? Matthew was indeed angry. She understood him too well. He couldn't be entangled with her for too long. If you don't leave, you'll end up like the 12 heavenly stars. You'll die in Huaxia, or you'll be sent to the military court. You know what you'll be sentenced to once you're sent to the military court, right? Perhaps you won't have the chance to come out for the rest of your life. Carolyn laughed softly. Even if I'm locked up for the rest of my life, I'll still be alive. It's better than me going back like this and dying because I didn't complete my mission. What do you mean by that? Matthew frowned. Is the punishment from the Joint Investigations Bureau so severe? He didn't believe Carolyn's words. The 12 heavenly stars are either dead or locked up. You all know this, Carolyn said. The final responsibility is borne by Douglas. Do you think that as the highest leader of the CIA, he'll commit suicide because of such a small matter? If he can't even handle such a small amount of pressure and wants to end the problem by committing suicide, what right does he have to lead the entire CIA? Matthew furrowed his eyebrows. He understood what Carolyn meant. Now, the American government wanted to get him back by hook or by crook. No matter who carried out this mission, they could only succeed and not fail. Once they failed, only death awaited them. What you mean is that if I don't go back with you, only death awaits you, Matthew said calmly. Carolyn was silent for a long time. Then she said, Kevin, there's actually a path that's good for all of us. It's good for all of us. The choice is in your hands. The power is in your hands. Matthew didn't say anything. He waited for Carolyn to continue. My feelings for you are real. Whether it was in the past or now, I didn't choose to be with you for the sake of national interests, Carolyn said. Carolyn replied, there are feelings between us. Don't tell me you really don't have any feelings for me? Carolyn, if you really have feelings for me, then don't leave. Stay in Huaxia. The relevant departments in Huaxia will protect you. Matthew said, also, don't call me Kevin in the future. My name is Matthew. I only have the name Huaxia. If you're really willing to give up your career for our feelings, then I'll believe you. Carolyn frowned. Why must I give up? If I give up, it'll be tantamount to betrayal. It'll be tantamount to abandoning my mission. If you go back with me, you can also achieve something in your career. What's more, if you go back to the United States, you can be equipped with the most advanced research lab and the most capable assistants. All the conditions are much better than if you stay in Huaxia. Matthew shook his head. Don't you understand what I mean? I'm not doing this for the conditions, nor am I doing it for the sake of my career. I'm doing this for my country. But I also want to do it for my country. Why are you giving up on me? Carolyn said. Can't you sacrifice a little for me? Matthew shook his head. I can sacrifice anything, but I can't sacrifice the interests of my country. I'm sure you're the same as me. Therefore, the two of us have different beliefs and can't work together. I don't want you to be hurt. This is the only thing I can do for you. Go. The sooner you go, the better. Chapter 1334. So you're saying that if I don't do as you wish today, you'll shed all pretense of cordiality with me? Matthew gave a faint smile. I know that the moment we stand on different sides, there will be… Haha. Perhaps it was a mistake for us to know each other back then. Carolyn's laughter also contained some helplessness. That's right. If we didn't know each other from the start, I wouldn't be in such a difficult position now. Kevin, don't blame me. It's not that I wanted to do this, but I really didn't have a choice. If I had a second choice, I definitely wouldn't want you to hate me for the rest of your life. Forgive me. I'm afraid that the one who needs to be forgiven is me. Matthew said with difficulty. You chose the wrong path. I want to save you, but you have your own path to persevere in. What exactly do you want to do next? I still hope that you can think clearly before you act. If you make a mistake… Carolyn suddenly stepped forward and hugged Matthew, directly sealing his lips with hers. Matthew didn't even have the chance to evade before being flipped onto the bed by this woman. This was definitely something that Matthew had never expected. He didn't know if Carolyn had done this because she was impulsive towards him, or because she wanted to use this method to take him down. Matthew was someone who had experienced Carolyn's passion before. It was a feeling of wanting to live and wanting to die. It was definitely something that he yearned for the most in his life. There was absolutely no man in the world that could resist such temptation. Carolyn's waist was like a water snake, and every inch of her graceful body was so captivating to him. At this moment, his mind had already turned blank. He only wanted this woman in front of him. Carolyn's initiative made it impossible for Matthew to resist. Although the two of them had made love to each other suddenly, neither of them felt that it was abrupt. The lingering feeling was like a drug addiction, causing people to sink deeper and deeper. Only when everything ended did Matthew realize that he had completely lost his mind. The panting Carolyn laid down beside Matthew, one of her hands gently caressing Matthew's chest. If you come back with me, we can do this every day from day to night, from the bedroom to the kitchen. As long as you want it, I can satisfy you. No matter what your request is, I'll listen to you. I'm yours for the rest of my life. I just need you to listen to me this once. Just this once. Matthew smiled bitterly. Indeed, he was obsessed with this woman. He liked her and loved her. Even though she was an agent who wanted to bring him back to the United States, he couldn't hate her. However, was he going to give up his country, which he had sworn loyalty to, for a woman? Of course not. Matthew wouldn't do such a thing. I won't promise you. If you wanted me to agree to your request just now, haha, then I can only say thank you. At least, I have always been sincere to you, including just now. Then come with me. Carolyn smiled. I really don't want to do anything to you. Matthew wanted to give Carolyn a chance again and again. He really wanted her to leave and not do anything stupid. Matthew, who was struggling in his heart, finally couldn't endure this torture anymore. He suddenly threw the clothes on Carolyn's body. Leave immediately. This is your last chance. All of a sudden, Carolyn realized that she hadn't understood the hidden meaning behind Matthew's words. Matthew wasn't discussing anything with her. Instead, he was emphasizing that he was giving her a chance. At this moment, Carolyn finally realized that Matthew had definitely come prepared. She asked with a look of astonishment, "Why are you so sure that I've been here all this time?" "Because you'll definitely think that with my character, I'll definitely come here to take a look," Matthew said indifferently. Carolyn quickly put on the clothes. At this moment, she didn't even know if what she had done with Matthew had been seen by other people. She hated this feeling the most. She was in the open while her opponent was in the dark. She couldn't sense any presence or aura at all. Usually, people like this were experts with great strength. The deeper they could hide themselves, the more terrifying their strength would be. Take Empress Zhua Langyue for example. If she didn't want you to know of her existence, you wouldn't be able to sense her even if she was standing behind you less than 10 centimeters away. This was the control an expert had over their aura. "Kevin, I owe you today," Carolyn said. "However, I still hope that you can consider it carefully. I've said it before. Call me Matthew in the future." Matthew said, "I also hope that you can consider it carefully. The sooner you leave, the better it will be for you. I don't want you to end up like the 12 heavenly stars. Carolyn put on her clothes and took a bag of important items before quickly leaving the hotel. She was afraid that those people secretly watching would suddenly change their minds. She believed that Kevin Matthews still had feelings for her. Otherwise, his love wouldn't have been so intense just now. Furthermore, he wouldn't have tried so hard to give her a chance to escape. Could it be that he had made an agreement with those people? If he could persuade her to leave, they wouldn't take action against her? Matthew raised his head and looked at the ceiling. He was just bluffing. He didn't have any reinforcements, nor did he have any bodyguards secretly watching everything. He just understood Carolyn too well. She was too suspicious. He only needed to repeat a few times to make her realize the danger. Then, she would fall into a lie made up by her own suspicions and be scared away by her own suspicions. It wasn't that Matthew wanted to do this, but that he had no choice. If Carolyn took action against him, he wouldn't have any chance to resist. She only needed to easily knock him out and then get a boat to sail to the high seas. After that, she would contact the organization. He believed that they would be able to arrange a boat through the troops stationed in Japan and quickly find the location of their boat through the positioning system. The entire process would only take a few hours. Furthermore, the U.S. government might even arrange a plane to bring Matthew back to the U.S. since he was such an important person. Perhaps when Matthew opened his eyes the next day, he would already be in Washington, D.C. All of these were very possible. The efficiency of the U.S. Secret Service was sometimes really terrifying. This was because of the government's support for them. They had everything they wanted. Under such circumstances, it was the most efficient way to carry out a mission. Therefore, Matthew had no choice but to do this. He wanted Carolyn to suspect that there were surveillance cameras around her so that she could think of a way to get rid of the people she suspected. By the time Carolyn realized that she had been tricked, Matthew would have already returned to a safe place. Sometimes, when there was a problem that couldn't be solved by force, the brain could easily solve it. Whether it was force or brain, it was good as long as he could win in the end. Although Matthew couldn't be considered a victory, at least he had temporarily gotten rid of Carolyn's threat. After doing it just now, his mind seemed to have cleared up a lot. In the future, it would be better if he didn't see Carolyn. Her temptation was too fatal for him. He still didn't want to tell Soo-yoon about this. After all, he did have a little hope in his heart that Carolyn would give up on herself. Chapter 1335. Unfortunately, Carolyn would not give up so easily. This was the best chance General Aude had given her to prove herself. The government had always denied and doubted the abilities of female agents. Faced with such doubts, Carolyn had always wanted to find a chance to prove herself to the government. However, General Aude had never given her a chance to prove herself. This time, using her relationship with Matthew, General Aude had given her a rare opportunity. As long as she could bring Kevin Matthew back, Carolyn could be said to have killed two birds with one stone. Not only would she be able to obtain the love she had always dreamed of, but she would also be able to gain General Aude's favor. She would also be able to apply to the government for the training of female agents. All of this only needed a beginning, and Kevin Matthew was this beginning. The key to Carolyn's success or failure lay with him. Carolyn had quickly fled Beijing because she was worried that she would be surrounded. When she came back to her senses, she realized that she had fallen into a trap. She should have thought about it more. If Kevin Matthew really had Hua Xia's Special Forces members by his side, even if he gave Matthew face, it was impossible for him to not chase after her, right? At the very least, he would have to follow her until he was sure that she had left Hua Xia, right? However, ever since she had left the hotel, her intuition had told her that no one was following her. Carolyn stopped in her tracks. Kevin Matthew knew her too well, so he had used her weakness to play a psychological battle with her. A slight smile appeared on Carolyn's face. It was all because he had come to the hotel alone. Even though she had quickly left the hotel, Carolyn did not give up on her mission. She took out a small GPS tracking device from her backpack. After turning on the screen, she saw a red dot moving. Finally, The red dot stopped at a place outside Beijing's 6th Ring Road. Carolyn did not give up even when she was retreating. She secretly stuck a patch-type GPS tracking device on Matthew's clothes, in an undetectable position. Since Matthew had set up a firewall around the network signal source, she had no choice but to use this more primitive method of tracking. Although technology was constantly improving, and many technologies could directly track through the signal source, some outdated technology that was about to be phased out was still indispensable to special agents. If Carolyn hadn't brought along this tracking device, which had already been discarded by many people, she wouldn't have been able to determine Matthew's location. Carolyn analyzed the situation seriously. There were two possibilities for the place Matthew had stopped at. The first possibility was that it was a place set up by Hua Xia's special department. There would definitely be soldiers from the special forces guarding it, and it would definitely not be easy for others to break through. There was no doubt about this. The other possibility was that this place was Matthew's residence. If it was the second, then she was very confident. Through the satellite conversion, the 2D map was converted into a satellite map. Carolyn was able to make out that this place was similar to a small residential area that wasn't particularly large. It was called a residential area because its scale couldn't be considered a villa. There were about 40 to 50 similar small residential areas in the vicinity. Americans might not know what this was called, but it was similar to the small two-story buildings that were built in new villages. The satellite map in Carolyn's hand showed such a place. There were about a few dozen houses in a new village, and it looked like it had been there for more than 10 years. There probably weren't many people left in this place, as most of them had moved away. This place was left to wait for Beijing to expand, and when it was demolished, they could make some money. Carolyn didn't know about Hua Xia's national conditions, and she didn't know about Hua Xia's real estate either. American metropolises were definitely filled with tall buildings and densely populated areas. In American small towns, the distance between each house was often hundreds of meters. In smaller towns, there might even be a house that was more than 10 miles apart. It had to be known that other than California, New York, Texas, Florida, and Illinois, which had a population of more than 10 million, the rest of the states had a population in the millions. Wyoming, North Dakota, and Vermont only had a population of about 5 to 600,000. In Beijing's larger residential areas, such as Tiantong Garden or Hualongguan, the number of residents in these residential areas was comparable to those in the sparsely populated states. It was because of this difference in national conditions that Carolyn didn't dare to act rashly. She suspected that this densely populated residential area was a special secret location that Kevin Matthew had participated in the research and development of. Carolyn felt a little disdainful when she saw this simple and crude setup. Didn't Hua Xia's technological research and development have improved a lot? Why was he still working in such a simple and crude place? She felt wronged for Kevin Matthew. A talent like him should be working in a high-tech building in America, where even making coffee was done by robots. He shouldn't be working in a residential area like this. This was just like a wealthy rural area, a place that had nothing to do with military research. Why? Why could Matthew tolerate her staying in such a place? Carolyn didn't understand. Was it because of the so-called national sentiments? Was it because of the so-called patriotism? Many of Hua Xia's top talents didn't hesitate to stay in America after studying there. Why? Because America could give them better treatment. Give them more US dollars. Give them a better living environment. Because of this, many people didn't hesitate to stay in America, build America, work hard for America, and contribute their life's worth of knowledge to America. Too many people didn't receive education from a young age to serve their motherland after becoming talented, but to be able to go abroad after becoming talented. This kind of thinking was deeply ingrained in the worldview of too many people, and it wasn't easy to change it. What exactly influenced the thinking of this generation? This was a question that was worth pondering. No matter what, Carolyn decided to check it out in the middle of the night. If it was really heavily guarded, she would have to think of another way. If it was just a secret base for the researchers, then she wouldn't be so polite to Kevin Matthew anymore. If there was anything, she would take him away first. Once they returned to America, Kevin Matthew wouldn't be able to make the decision. Human rights were reserved for those who were obedient. Not just anyone could stand in front of the American government and shout for human rights. Those who opposed the government, betrayed the government, and couldn't be used by the government had no human rights to speak of. The logic was that simple. As long as Kevin Matthew returned to America and obediently worked for them, he would be able to enjoy all the power, the highest power. But if he stubbornly insisted on staying in Huaxia, then he would have no rights. The Americans wouldn't even give him the most basic right to survive. Because his right to survive would affect the interests of the American government, they would ruthlessly strip him of all his rights. The world where the strong preyed on the weak was cruel. Many things that people saw were far less cruel than what actually happened. This world was full of unspoken rules, including the human rights that the Americans insisted on the most. All the rules were established by the powerful. It was that simple. Chapter 1336. Finally, Carolyn successfully entered the residential area. This place was not as dangerous as she had imagined. After confirming it over and over again, she was sure that she had been overthinking things. This place was completely safe. There were dozens of residential areas, but there were only 2 or 3 scattered residents. What was Matthew doing in a place like this? Could it be that the high-tech military researchers of Huaxia had to rent their own houses? Carolyn had heard stories about Beijing drifters in Huaxia. Many people had come to Beijing for their dreams, but they could only rent places like basements. However, those people were just workers. They were people who had dreams but no abilities. How could they be compared to Carolyn? How could they be compared to Matthew? What was Matthew's status? If he was evaluated by international military organizations as the second genius in the world in terms of military weapon development, then no one would dare to say that they were the first. This was Matthew's value, his supreme value. This was also why the United States government valued him so much. No matter what price they had to bring him back from Huaxia. Although this was a world that advocated peace, the majority of countries would do their best to sacrifice, contribute, tolerate for world peace. But war was an unavoidable problem. It was an unpredictable problem. Perhaps one day, at a certain moment, a certain matter that wasn't insignificant but wasn't serious could trigger a war. Modern warfare was a completely different concept from World War I and World War II. In World War I, there were successful blitzkrieg tactics. They used mobile forces to attack quickly and unexpectedly to prevent the enemy from organizing a defensive line. They made use of the advantage of the speed of airplanes and tanks to defeat the enemy by surprise. Simply put, it was a surprise attack, concentration, and speed. What did World War II pay attention to? Everyone knew about the Desert Fox, Rommel. He understood a principle very well. In a battle between 2 armies, whoever used firepower to suppress the opponent first would usually win. He liked to use his anti-aircraft artillery to attack the enemy's tanks first, then command a large number of tanks to attack. But that was a war of the past. Modern warfare paid attention to technology. What was technology? Science and technology was not about using a sea of people. Powerful special forces, well-trained special forces, backed by a group of highly intelligent researchers, used technology as the strongest backing to support these special forces members with outstanding combat ability. They used satellites to fight, infiltrate, and win the greatest victory with the least sacrifice. This was the trend of modern warfare. Therefore, in modern warfare, a country's combat power was definitely not judged by how many cannons or soldiers they had. Take Xian Chao Gua for example. They had more than 1 million soldiers, and 9% of them were special forces. They had more than 3,000 main battle tanks, 3,000 towed artillery, 4,000 self-propelled artillery, 7,000 to 8,000 pursuit cannons, and 10,000 anti-aircraft cannons. But what was the use of these things? In modern warfare, who would still command soldiers to charge and break through enemy lines? They only needed a few hundred special forces soldiers to infiltrate the enemy's military deployment based on technology, obtain the enemy's orders on what to do next, and obtain the enemy's location of the anti-air cannons. Then, they would precisely rush to the target and destroy it. Using UAV combat technology, they could eliminate those main battle tanks without wasting a single soldier. These operations did not even require the appearance of a person. The special forces only needed to transmit the target's coordinates, and the UAV would be able to locate, track, and accurately attack. This was all thanks to a military technology genius like Kevin Matthew. There was no need to say more about Matthew's importance. Hua Xia's technology R&D department would allow such a person to rent a house? This was a little too laughable. Carolyn realized that she really did not understand Kevin Matthew more and more. What exactly was he doing? As a Hua Xia citizen, could it be that he had not heard of an old Hua Xia saying, "Man walks to the top, water flows to the bottom"? According to the GPS, Carolyn quickly arrived at the house. She directly climbed over the wall and entered. The moment she opened the door, Carolyn saw Kevin Matthews' eyes looking at her. They were filled with despair and helplessness. It seemed that he had already realized that he was at the end of his rope. "Kevin, I admit that I fell into your trap. However, I'm very touched that you were still considerate of me and didn't bring the Huaxia Special Forces to capture me," Carolyn said. "Please believe in me. I took you away with me out of consideration for you. Water flows to the bottom, and man walks to the top. Isn't this the crystallization of the wisdom of your Hua Xia ancestors? I understand such a simple principle, so I think you must understand it very well, right? I understand this principle, but I also understand another principle. A son does not despise his mother for being ugly, and a dog does not despise his family for being poor." Matthew said lightly. He was really desperate. He was not desperate for himself, but for Carolyn. He had given her a chance. As long as she obediently cooperated with him and left, everything would be fine. Su Yun had already promised him that as long as she left, he would not pursue the matter. However, Su Yun had also told Matthew with certainty that as an agent of the Federal Investigation Agency, he believed that Carolyn would not let go easily. She would definitely use other methods to track him down. Therefore, after Matthew left the hotel, he came to this residence to meet up with Su Yun and the others. This place was the residence of two lonely old men that Wang Yi had helped to alleviate poverty. The two old men had passed away many years ago. When they passed away, they had written their wills and passed the house to Wang Yi. Wang Yi had lived in the brigade all year round and had never come to this place. After Matthew informed Su Yun that Carolyn had come to Hua Xia to look for him, he also told Su Yun about his relationship with Carolyn. After Su Yun learned about the situation, he clearly realized that Matthew definitely did not want to hurt anyone. He would not betray his country, but at the same time, he did not want to hurt Carolyn. Therefore, he asked Wang Yi for help and borrowed this place. He had promised Matthew that he would give Carolyn a chance. If Carolyn could leave after meeting Matthew for the first time because of their old friendship, Su Yun would also promise not to pursue the matter. Matthew knew that this was already a very good result, so he was very much looking forward to Carolyn not disappointing him. What Matthew did not expect was that their first meeting would happen so quickly. After Carolyn left, Matthew contacted Su Yun and told him that Carolyn had already left. If she really did not return, he hoped that Su Yun would not pursue the matter. Su Yun naturally did as he said, but he asked Matthew to come to this residence. When Matthew arrived, Su Yun quickly found a tracking device on his body. Matthew was stunned. He never expected that Carolyn would not give up on her persistence even under such circumstances. The problem was too simple. He only needed to wait here with Su Yun and the others. If Carolyn did not appear and left completely, it would mean that she had thought things through. It would be equivalent to nothing happening. However, once Carolyn appeared, it would mean that she was stubborn. For someone who was stubborn, Su Yun and the others would not give her a chance again and again. Everything should come to an end. There was only one chance, and only one choice. This was fair to Carolyn. Matthew had been praying all this time. He prayed that Carolyn would understand his good intentions and see through this obvious trap. He prayed that she would retreat in the face of difficulties and not participate in this matter. However, Carolyn disappointed him. Not only did she not retreat in the face of difficulties, she even came here a few hours later and tried to persuade him to leave. When Matthew rejected her, Carolyn did not hesitate and directly took action against him. She wanted to use violent methods to knock him out and then forcefully take him away. As long as she could quickly reach the U.S. military garrison in Tokyo, everything would be safe. Chapter 1337. Matthew has already fought for a chance for you. If you leave, I won't pursue the matter any further. Soo-yoon gave a faint smile. However, from the looks of it now, you don't seem to have the resolve to do so. Although Matthew wants to have tender feelings for the fairer sex, we won't. Carolyn looked at the people who had suddenly appeared in front of her with vigilance. She had recognized Soo-yoon with a single glance. This person had long been listed as the most difficult to deal with by General Ade. Indeed, he was much harder to deal with than she had imagined. Presumably, all of this wasn't something that Matthew would do. Although Matthew was smart enough, he wouldn't use such schemes. People who were able to come up with such schemes would definitely have experienced fighting and scheming. There were far more schemes and schemes in war than one could imagine. Many people who weren't scheming would learn all sorts of schemes and schemes from all sorts of battles. Matthew hadn't experienced all sorts of scheming and scheming battles. Therefore, it was simply impossible for him to scheme against her. However, Soo-yoon was different. Since Soo-yoon was able to enter General Ade's blacklist, it meant that he was a sufficiently cunning person in all sorts of battles. He must have seen through all of her schemes.
Kai.
Matthew, do we really have to involve outsiders in the matters between us? Carolyn quickly realized that it was practically impossible for her to walk out of this door safely. The only way was to convince Kevin Matthew to stand on her side. Don't say any more. I've already given you a chance. Matthew had already completely given up on Carolyn. It was impossible for her to give up on pursuing the matter. It was impossible for her to give up on her goal. Soo-yoon could give her a chance because of him, but it was impossible for him to give her a second chance over and over again. Matthew turned around to look at Soo-yoon. It hadn't been long since the crimes committed by the 12 Heavenly Stars in Shen River City. The deep sense of guilt he felt towards Soo-yoon still remained deep in his heart. This guilt caused Matthew to be unable to sleep. When he opened his mouth to ask Soo-yoon if he could give Carolyn another chance, it was already extremely difficult for him to open his mouth. The fact that Soo-yoon agreed so readily already made him very touched. Carolyn didn't cherish this opportunity. Things had already reached a point of no return. Although it hadn't been long, Matthew still hardened his heart. There were many things that needed to be settled. Otherwise, he would never be able to say goodbye to the past. It's not that Matthew doesn't care about old times. The problem lies with the U.S. government. When are you going to stop being so relentless? Soo-yoon said coolly, "It's better for everyone if you give up earlier." It was Matthew's own choice to return to Hwaseong. We respect his choice, and we hope that you will respect his choice. The 12 Heavenly Stars would do that sort of thing, and I could understand that it was a mission. But you, don't tell me you don't have any feelings at all? You make it sound so nice. His own choice? If you didn't bring him back to Hwaseong, he would still be in America. Carolyn said. The conditions that we can give him are far better than yours. You brought him back by force. That's coercive possession. Soo-yoon knew that he couldn't get through to her. The problem isn't what you can give Matthew. It's what Matthew wants. What he wants is definitely not to work for a country that killed his father. Do you understand? Carolyn didn't know what Soo-yoon was talking about. When she heard this, she was indeed a little surprised. However, she maintained her suspicions towards Soo-yoon. Who knew if this person was deliberately mystifying things? Who knew what kind of intentions this person had? Maybe this was all fabricated out of thin air. It was all nonsense. Brother Yoon, don't say so much to her, Matthew said coolly. Let the International Court of Justice pass a judgment on her actions. The American government has done this kind of thing again and again. I can't tolerate it anymore. It's time for me to stand up and announce my position. If the American government still doesn't forgive me, it will be a violation of my human rights. I have to expose their despicable face. Soo-yoon wouldn't let Ma Dun do that. Once she did, she would completely anger the American government. When that time came, the trouble wouldn't just be this. What kind of trouble would a person who exposed the American government get into? Just look at Edward Snowden. However, Snowden was indeed a person who affected history. Not long ago, he revealed the highest-level, core secret operation of the American National Security Agency. He said that the National Security Agency had sent spies to Hua-Xia, Germany, Korea, and many other countries. They also destroyed and invaded the network equipment through physical means. Moreover, the American National Security Agency surveillance project on Hua-Xia had also obtained the support of the CIA, where the 12 heavenly stars were, the Federal Investigation Agency led by Carolyn, and the National Defense Intelligence Agency. This was mainly due to the cross-intelligence cooperation brought about by the Osprey Sentinel project. The American government's National Security Agency not only monitored the network remotely, but also dug up the secrets of other countries through the Human Intelligence Program. Snowden's latest revelations had once again confirmed that the American government was the world's #1 network thief and attacker. For many years, the Americans had relied on their core technology and global internet infrastructure to continuously carry out large-scale organized and premeditated network theft and monitoring activities against foreign governments, enterprises, and individuals. And their core technology was brought to them by various geniuses. Now, they needed military geniuses the most. Once Kevin Matthew joined their organization, the consequences would be unimaginable. The connection of various high-tech talents would allow the American government to become an aptitude user who didn't need to waste a single soldier. They only needed to invade the network and conduct satellite warfare to quickly take control of a country's aptitude user. Once the American government had this kind of ability, it was easy to imagine what the world would become. It was simply unimaginable. The reason why Soo-yoon had been fighting against the American government was because of this reason. The reason why Soo-yoon wanted Matthew to stay in Hua-Xia was also because of this reason. He admitted that if Matthew had chosen the United States at that time, he wouldn't have forced him to go. He would have let him go. However, if Matthew had listened to the American government's arrangements and done something shameless to Hua-Xia, he would have definitely killed Matthew himself and made him regret his choice. Fortunately, Matthew's choice wasn't wrong. He didn't choose to return to the United States. Instead, he chose to stay in Hua-Xia. The fact that he chose to stay meant that he understood this principle. Ever since Snowden had continuously exposed these scandals of the American government, Matthew had realized this problem. The American government absolutely couldn't join. Once he joined, he would become a sinner in history. Although Matthew didn't want to become a person who would leave his name in history, he absolutely refused to become a person who would go down in infamy. No matter what, he wouldn't cooperate with such a despicable and shameless powerful government. That would harm the interests of all the other countries in the world. Of course, Matthew wasn't that great. He just didn't want to help the government that had killed his father. He also had his own selfish motives. He wanted to use his own way to resist the government that he hated. If he could make Hua-Xia strong enough, the powerful and domineering United States wouldn't dare to be so arrogant internationally. This was the main reason why Matthew would stay in Hua-Xia. Soo-yoon was very clear about Matthew's thoughts, and he also understood Matthew's mentality. If it were him, he would be like Matthew. Therefore, he believed that even if Carolyn was there, Soo-yoon believed that Matthew wouldn't choose to go to the United States. Soo-yoon's judgment was correct. Matthew still chose the most correct choice at the most critical moment. Only when he let go, Soo-yoon could be sure that he wouldn't regret it afterward. Chapter 1338. Facing Soo-yoon, Lin-gu, and the members of the Dragon Fury team who were gradually walking out from the shadows, Carolyn gradually gave up the idea of resisting. It was impossible for her to escape in front of so many people. As the leader of the special agents of the Federal Investigation Agency, Carolyn was extremely rational and calm. No matter what she encountered, she would always be able to quickly analyze the probability. For example, right now, she only had a 0.1% chance of escaping. However, if she tried to escape, there was a 50% chance that she would be killed by the other party. If she wanted her survival rate to reach 100%, she could only surrender. Carolyn was very clear that as long as she stayed alive, she still had a chance. It was impossible for Matthew not to come and see her again. No matter how small the probability was, she still had the possibility of persuading Matthew. If she forced her way out and died, she wouldn't even have the chance to continue persuading Matthew. That way, there wouldn't even be a chance at all. How could she continue? There's no need to make such a big fuss. There are so many of you. I can't escape, Carolyn said. I know the result of resisting. After saying that, Carolyn took the initiative to spread her hands in front of her. Soo-yoon was indeed quite surprised. She didn't even resist at all. This was really a little incomprehensible. You've given up resisting? Such cooperation isn't the style of American special agents. Haha, I really don't know if I should thank you or not. It's not that I don't want to resist. Carolyn smiled helplessly. There are so many of you. How can I resist? Rather than getting hurt, it's better to surrender. The result will be the same anyway. If I can't even figure out such a simple probability, what right do I have to work in the bureau? Soo-yoon clapped his hands and said with a smile, That's true. If you can't even calculate such a simple probability, you really aren't qualified to work in the Joint Investigations Department. Then, why didn't you calculate your probability of success before you came to Huaxia? Could it be that you were too confident in your own charm? Sometimes, excessive self-confidence can be a serious stumbling block. Winner takes all. Carolyn understood this principle. Now, she had no right to interrupt Soo-yoon. The only thing she could do was to obediently comply with all of the other party's orders. In response to Soo-yoon's words, she could only smile faintly. Even you know how to calculate probabilities. Doesn't the person who leads you and gives you orders also know how to calculate probabilities? Soo-yoon laughed disdainfully. He should know very well that the chances of anyone coming to Huaxia to take Matthew away are 0. Since he can't even calculate such a simple probability, how can he still be your leader? If you can get in touch with him, tell him what I said. Don't test my limits anymore. You dared to come alone because of your relationship with Matthew. If it weren't for Matthew's face, do you think you can still stand in front of us and talk to us in one piece? Lin Gu said disdainfully. Don't pretend to be innocent. The person above you, what kind of guarantee did he give you to make you dare to come alone? Soo-yoon laughed coldly. You know that Huaxia is a country of etiquette. No matter how you mess around, even if you get caught, as long as you don't resist, no one will do anything to you. Especially now, we don't have any evidence to charge you with anything. You can even say that you're just meeting a friend. You only need to use a little bit of your connections to bring you back to America safely. Soo-yoon was right. That was indeed the case. The reason why Carolyn had come alone was so that Huaxia wouldn't be able to find any evidence to charge her. As long as she didn't do anything that could be used against her in Huaxia, even if Huaxia pushed her to an international trial, the U.S. government would still have a chance to quibble. When the time came, it would be impossible to explain this matter clearly. In fact, Soo-yoon really wanted to meet the person who had sent these people to Huaxia. That person was really too sinister and cunning. He must be very clear about the relationship between Carolyn and Matthew. That was why he had agreed to let Carolyn come to Huaxia alone. This way, he could deal with the rest of the matter. Even if Carolyn failed, he could think of a way to get her out. Soo-yoon suddenly realized that something wasn't right. This old thing must have planned this beforehand. He had probably arranged for Carolyn to come here just to scout ahead. Maybe the other party had a backup plan. Carolyn's smile told Soo-yoon that his guess was right. Even if they caught her, they couldn't do anything to her. They didn't have any evidence. You guys are really smart, Soo-yoon said lightly. Instead of catching her, they would get into trouble. The U.S. government might even bite back and say that Huaxia had been slandering them all along. They might even use this opportunity to clear their name of the 12 heavenly stars' actions of tarnishing their government's reputation. In this way, the pressure of public opinion would fall on Hua Xia's side. Damn it! Su Yun suddenly realized that he couldn't catch this woman. If he caught her, he would be splashed with dirty water. Not only would he have no way to prove the US government's shameless and despicable actions, but he would also have to try his best to explain it internationally. Who was the mastermind behind this? To be able to be so shrewd, to be able to make so many decisions with just one move. No matter what Su Yun does, the US government will always be the one to benefit. Matthew also suddenly realized that Carolyn's skin contact with him just now might not be because she couldn't control herself. It was also a requirement of the mission. This way, she could extract his from her body. Could it be that she had done it with him for this purpose? Sometimes, people shouldn't be too smart. Carolyn said lightly, "You guys have indeed realized everything, but it's too late. What should have happened has already happened. You can take me away or let me go. I won't continue to be entangled with you guys. But I want to tell Matthew one last thing." No one said anything. They couldn't imagine what other tricks this woman had up her sleeves. Did she want to continue convincing Matthew in front of so many people? That was simply wishful thinking. "Today is a dangerous day for me," Carolyn said, "after what we did just now, although I can't be 100% sure that I will be pregnant with your child. But I've calculated the odds, and the possibility of a child between us is still very high. Matthew, no matter what you choose, I will keep this child." Despicable. Shameless. She was too despicable and shameless. She could even use such a trick. She actually... Was this woman so ruthless? "Of course, the child is also mine. I will take good care of him," Carolyn said, "but if you are willing to watch the child lose his father, then you can continue to stay in Huaxia." This was the trump card that could really hit Matthew. Because Matthew had experienced the pain of losing a father's love, it was really an unbearable torture for him to let his child not receive a father's love from a young age. And now, the person who said this sentence was actually the woman he loved deeply, and the mother of his child. "You're thinking too much." Lin Gu realized that something was wrong with Matthew and hurriedly stood up to deny it. "Do you think it's so easy to win the lottery? Maybe you're a woman who can't conceive." Don't use these words to confuse Matthew. "I didn't say that I would definitely win the lottery. But as for the probability, even if I don't say it, Matthew knows." Carolyn said indifferently, "If you're really determined to stay in Huaxia, then I'll tell you that I won't tell you whether I give birth to this child or not." Matthew looked at Carolyn at a loss. What should he do? You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.